call to order the Charter Township of Oxford Planning Commission regular meeting scheduled for Thursday, October 2nd, 2017. Please rise and pay your respects to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please note the roll.
Noted.
Mr. Berger is excused for this evening. Item 4, approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular Planning Commission meeting agenda for Thursday, October 12th, 2017.
Support. Been moved by Mr. Curtis, supported by Mr. Spiz. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Can I make just a comment? The way that the agenda is currently set up, we have master plan review prior to addressing the site plan and the waiver. Is that something you want to, is that order correct, or would you like to move it master plan past new business to allow the applicants to get in and get out?
I was going to propose that.
I'll amend my agenda to switch item 9 with item 10A and B. I re-support.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Item 5, approval of minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular Planning Commission meeting minutes for Oxford Township meeting September 28, 2017.
Second. It's been moved by Mr. Curtis, seconded by Mr. Knoll. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair, just a slight correction for attendees. And I've already discussed it with the recording secretary because I was not here, but I'm listed in both the
Yep.
attendees and
Here.
excused absence. I haven't been able to pull myself yet, but I keep trying.
Okay.
Split personality.
You noted the correction.
But yeah.
Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Item 6, public comments on items not scheduled for public hearing or on this agenda. So we're talking about 2 items in new business in the master plan. Is there anyone out in the audience wishing to speak about an item not on the list? Yes, Supervisor Thompson.
Bill Dunn, I'm Township Supervisor. I'm not hearing a very pleasant thing. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty ticked off. I'm not a happy person. I'm going to start with, when an applicant comes in here to the Planning Commission, I expect people to be fair. And people haven't been fair in this. We've gotten misinformation throughout the last 2 months, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of having the recording secretary attacked, and I will get into that. I'm going to start with the road complaint. It came into me. As a matter of fact, the person that made the complaint, I was driving home one day, pulled into my driveway, and she's standing on the sidewalk taking pictures of my house. When I approached her, she ran across the road, got in her car, and left. So anyhow, I followed up with the enforcement officer. This had to do with a road on, I guess it was House of Providence. There was claimed to be a road built. I sent the enforcement officer out there, nothing. So, not leaving it there, I grabbed a hold of Trustee Curtis, and I took the substation commander. We went out there in a patrol car, went up and down, nothing. So I watched the last meeting, or a meeting where a planning commission member picked up a laptop and showed it to the people, and you could barely see it from the TV, and it looked like a limestone road. And I said, well, shit, I gotta go back out there. So I grabbed Lieutenant Patterson again, and went out there on Davis and Lake Road, drove the entire length. I have a better chance of finding a leprechaun out there than a road. So I'm not real happy about that. I've also got a statement that's been made. This is a quote, and it's verbatim. We need to get real minute person, maybe a real stenographer, which would be less expensive than a salary of a deputy superintendent, and someone who is not going to be calling police just because we brought up a subject she doesn't like. obviously were not intimidated to you, but maybe she felt that, of course, it's all, and she felt that, and to have the police called is inappropriately to intimidate us up here speaking is inappropriate. I've sent out an email telling everyone that I called the police. I had a call from a resident during one of the meetings saying things were getting out of hand. The reason I did that is because I got an email which I consider a threat. I wish I had, saying that I guarantee you there's going to be outrage. I guarantee you what you saw last night was nothing compared to what I'm hearing from the residents around here. What you saw yesterday was a scouting party. So when I hear things are getting out of hand as a township supervisor, I'm not going to take that lightly. So I am the one that called, and guess what? A police officer will be here at every meeting, and he will have, I'm telling him to do it. He's not here to intimidate. He's here to make sure that people play nice in the sandbox. And as long as you play nice, there's no foul. Problems with lot splits in the township. Well, problem with splits in the township is in trouble. Well, got a hold of the county. Excuse me for fumbling. I have it right here. September 18th, to whom it may concern, I'm the supervisor of tax descriptions and mapping at Oakland County Equalization. My department processes the splits and combinations that establish new tax parcels for all Oakland County, Michigan. Oakland County is the contracted assessor for Oxford Township. As part of your contract assessing team, I also review any appropriate splits and combinations for compliance with the State of Michigan Land Division Act, PA 591 of 1996, and report any violations the state is required by the General Property Tax Act, PA 206 of 1983, 211.53, parentheses 3. I've acted in this role for the past 13 years, and during that time, I've worked closely with Oxford Township to ensure that splits and combinations are processed as approved. Within this time, I have never had reason to report Oxford Township of any type of violation to the state or any other entity. Sincerely, Brenda Firestein. I also contacted Leanne Boucher. She is our assessor assigned here to the township. And summary, Treasurer Farai and myself had a conference call to Brenda Firestein, Supervisor of Tax Description and Mapping, Oakland County Equalization, who handles our acreage lot split applications for over 15 plus years. She stated they have not had one problem with our applications. She has not received any notification of state involvement, nor has she ever reported to the state a problem. If we the township would receive a letter of correction. Now I'm checking with you, well, you get it. Calling the county and calling the state, saying you're doing it on behalf of the PC and ZBA, that's wrong. You can call and do it on your own name, but to do it on the PC name or ZBA name is inappropriate. And I've had the chairman, I believe, of the ZBA telling the recording secretary they work for them. Let me tell you how the recording secretary works. In this case, Secretary Cushing, during the day she's my deputy. She answers to me. And the evening when she takes the role as recording secretary, she's working for Clerk Wright. He is happy with the way the meeting minutes are presented, and that's all that's necessary. If there's any problem with her, she's to report to me or Curtis Wright, depending on what duties. The master plan. I hear out there where some people want it written in stone like the Ten Commandments. that they're gonna do this, and we're gonna block this, and we're, you know what, the master plan is a guide. It's a guide to help you through, you know, everything we've got coming, you know, as far as population. You know, if someone really wants to stifle growth and be able to guarantee what's happening on a piece of property, buy the damn property. If you want a golf course, buy it and you can do whatever the hell you want. I know if I want to go out there and buy 100 acres and I want to split it 5 times, I'm going to do it. I don't want some group telling me, stepping on my property rights, to develop a property the way I should be able to. But it seems like some other people want to put stuff in the way. I don't think it's going to happen in this township. We are going to go by the master plan, and we're going to make sure that growth is going to be as close as can be to the master plan. We want that corner of Oxford Township. We're proud of it. We're not going to let things go amok out there. It's going to be developed, or not developed, but it's going to happen at its own pace. But I'm not going to stifle some, 400-acre landowner that they can't develop it, or they can't do this. I guess I've said enough. I'm very disappointed. I expect people to be treated with respect and not have misinformation out there. This misinformation has cost the township thousands and thousands of dollars chasing their tails, trying to answer questions. And I'm tired of it.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on a topic not covered in the agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to commissioners' comments. Mr. Curtis.
I have none.
Mr. Knoll.
I have none.
Rosner.
I have a couple. I was gonna make a note, or actually comment, because I wasn't here at the last meeting. There was a statement I made, and actually, Mr. Gunn said it, but I said, did something about what the assessor said, and what was quoted to me was really not accurate, and I never said that planning commission was in trouble. I said we can get in trouble if we don't do it process right. And so, I had some concerns with some of the previous lot splits. One was when I was on the lot split committee, and we didn't have information on the Land Division Act and the numbers of when it could be split, and it turned out my concern was right, and we couldn't split that property for a while because it was time barred. I've got, pass this out, the one for the recording system. Pass it down that way. This is a 2-page here. Yeah, it's front and back, just to make it easy. This is a recent lot split that was done. If you look at the actual configuration of the lot, the minimum acres required in that district is 20, and that would be 20 net acres. You can't include the road. This lot was created with 20 gross acres. Not only that, it's unsurveyed. That's what the notes say. If you flip it around, it says it's unsurveyed. Okay, so this lot is deficient in size, by quite a bit. When you subtract that road frontage, it's too small. In this district, the lot is required to be 600 feet wide. It is not 600 feet wide. Not even close. It's 462 feet wide. Had the lot been 600 feet wide, it would go right through the buildings. This lot, as far as I know, did not come for variance for lot size. It did not come for variance for lot width. So here's a recent lot split that's been created that's affected a bunch of people in that area who are very, very unhappy about it. And so comments about the people being unhappy and outraged are not threats, they're statements that people are really upset that a lot was created that really appears to be, well, according to its own diagram, too small and too narrow. So what do we do about this when the township does this? And then when I look at the planner's report, this was our previous planner, it even says that the lot width has to be 600 feet. And 20 acres. But there's a big difference between 20 acres net and 20 acres gross. And our ordinance clearly says you can't include the road. So what do we do? So, you know, when people are upset and talking about errors and trying to get the system fixed, there's legitimate reasons for it. Because we don't want to make mistakes at the township level that affect properties like this. And then I was told another piece got split off, this corner piece. It was my understanding at the meeting that the road was contingent on approvals from the environmental agencies to make sure they'd be able to move dirt. And so that's my understanding. I wasn't here at the last meeting to go over the minutes, but it was my understanding that that private road approval was contingent on that fact. So then I've been told in the meantime that the lots have been split. However, the state law says you can't split a lot until you actually have a road approved. The road is not approved. If the DEQ or an environmental agency or any entity says you can't move dirt or you have to move that road, we already have the lots split. Why are they split before we know if we can actually put the road there or not? It's not what I thought we agreed to. So I do have some concerns. And I'd really like to know on this lot here, what do we do?
Is that it, Cal?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Hardwick?
I have no comment.
Mr. Stiz?
No comment.
Yeah, we'll probably talk about, I don't have any comments either, but we'll probably talk about this later on down in acreage lots committee. Public hearings, we have none. Item 9, or well, actually item 10. So we move these around. Final site plan amendment for Hubbard Spring. Is the applicant here? You kind of come up and give us your name, address, and what you're proposing to do.
My name is Charlie Hubbard. I'm with MD Hubbard Spring Company, and we're located at 595 South Lapeer Road in Oxford Township. We are asking for relief for one item on our original site plan. We are asking not to enclose our dumpster. We're asking to place it on a concrete pad, 42 foot by 35 foot at the south end of our new addition. On occasion, we will load the dumpster from the side and not from the front of the dumpster, using a fork truck, lifting heavy items. We can put the fork truck up beside the dumpster, lift the heavy item, and then push it off into the dumpster. This saves carrying it around to the front of the dumpster, lifting it up and throwing the heavy item in. It's a convenience as well as a safety item. We also move the dumpster around when we're loading and unloading large equipment. And the other day we loaded a 22-foot long piece of machinery into the plant. We're asking for the freedom to continue to use the situation as we have in the past for the past 43 years, just the same as we have been for all that period of time. We cannot see any significant negative effect from this. We're asking for your help, and we are out of sight, and we don't bother anyone.
Okay, let's take comments from our planner and engineer. Can we need some duct tape for those, Jack?
Yeah, just right this center.
Mine's pretty simple as well. In terms of the waiver, first I want to say that a waiver should be moved and approved prior to site plan approval. It's a waiver of section 6.20.8.1, which requires dumpsters to be enclosed on 3 sides by a screen wall or fence. However, section 6.20.8.7 allows the Planning Commission to waive this requirement upon determining that there's no significant effect that would result. Given the location in the south end of the building and its location away from the Pier Road, I do not see any negative effects that would result from granting the waiver. However, there are a couple discrepancies in the site plan that was submitted that if approval is granted, I think should be conditioned upon correcting these. The site plan that was submitted to me still include the detail of the dumpster enclosure. That should be removed if it is approved. Sheet 2 also lists the wrong zoning district. It says it's listed as C2 when in fact it's I1. So that should be corrected on the site plan. And a question I do have for the applicant is the landscape plan that was included with the submittal was dated June 12th. However, the Planning Commission of July 19th, of last year, approved a landscape plan that was dated July 19th, 2016. So there's a discrepancy in the dates. The June 12th, 2016 plan that you submitted was slightly different in terms of landscaping than the one that was actually approved. So I'm not sure if you have any information about which plan is correct, which one was actually
I
implemented.
don't have that information,
Okay.
so I can't.
Yeah, because the July 19th one that was approved by the Planning Commission had buffer screening in a different location than the landscape plan that was submitted with this submittal. Given that those 3 minor issues are addressed, I would recommend granting the waiver and granting amended site plan.
Okay, Mr. Sharp?
From an engineering perspective, we have no comment. This is purely a planning and a zoning issue. No engineering aspects involved.
Anything from the chief?
Nothing.
Anything from the commissioners?
I was out there prior to the addition that Mr. Hubbard put on for many times while we installed the new water main out there, and watched him use the dumpster in a manner that mobility was of their concern for safety and ease of use. We've never had a complaint about his dumpster or his parking areas or anything back in there. In fact, most people have never seen Hubbard Spring in there. So I'm in favor of it.
Mr. Gold?
I had a chance to visit Hubbard Spring and had a nice tour of the facility. And it is very noticeable that when trucks come in to load and unload, that they want that dumpster out of the way. If we had a 3-sided type of a fencing area. If we had a 3-sided type of a fencing area, then it would hinder his work with trucks loading and unloading.
Mr. Spiz?
Nothing for me.
Charlotte?
Just when the original site plan was presented, was it just some oversight on your part that you had it enclosed, or
Yes, plus,
did you never intended to have it enclosed?
no. We had a lot going on at the time. We were running a business, we're competing with China, we're competing with Indochina, all these things. We don't have a lot of time to spend.
I could address that. It is required by the ordinance, so maybe it just wasn't, it was a change of plan from them. Either way, they would have had to come back to the planning commission to ask for this waiver if they didn't install it. So maybe you may have had the intent originally, but conditions changed. I can't speak on behalf of you.
Kelly?
Per ordinance, the only condition is that one, that no negative effects or no significant negative effects.
Correct.
So as long as we make that determination in a finding,
Yes.
then we can, I didn't see any negative effects because of the location of it as well. It's a pretty concealed location.
Any good discussion?
I'm looking at you with one, I just broke my
I
glasses.
just saw these there.
Pretty common.
R, matey. I move that the planning commission waive the dumpster enclosure requirement contained in section 6.20.A.1 upon finding that the waiver will not result in any negative effects per section 6.20.A.7.
Second?
Would you consider changing it to no effects to no significant effects?
I'll amend my motion to state no significant effects, no significant negative effects.
I'll second that as well.
Been moved by Mr. Curtis and re-seconded by Mr. Knoll. Any discussion on the motion as presented? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Well, we're not done yet. I move that the planning commission approve the amended final site plan for MD Hubbard Spring, parcel ID number 04-26-303-008 and 009, 565 South Lapeer Road, zoned I1, light industrial. Applicant MD Hubbard Spring. This approval is based upon the finding that the amended site plan meets the criteria for site plan approval contained in section 12.5 of the zoning ordinance. Further, this approval is conditioned upon submittal of the revised final site plan addressing the issues contained within planner's review letter dated October 2nd, 2017. End of motion.
I second.
Been moved by Mr. Curtis, second by Mr. Knoll. Any discussion on the
I
motion?
just have
What about the sidewalk?
a quick question. I know there were some concerns by the planner. Are we intended to have those corrected? Did you address it?
He addressed it as a
That's-
condition.
Okay, I didn't hear
The
it.
conditions in the letter dated October 2nd.
Sorry.
Did we just part about the sidewalk?
looking at
What
your
was the
paper.
resolution on that?
We didn't resolve the sidewalk because it wasn't in the planner's plot package.
So it's on there currently?
If it's,
Yes.
it's still on the plan.
Okay.
If I may? Yes. You know, I know I visited the site several times, and what's in front of and back of Mr. Hubbard's property, I don't know if that building is used or not, but it was built on a railroad right-of-way, and that property is seldom used, if it's used at all. And the property in front of Mr. Hubbard's is the We Buy It shop, and now currently has a heating and cooling shop in there. I know Mr. Hubbard talked about it, but failed to have it on this request, but he was requesting that we waive the requirement of the sidewalk on that property. Because the businesses in front, there is no sidewalk, the people use it to park from the building to the street. Then the building, and then the property behind him it runs right into their driveway to those buildings. Putting that sidewalk in there would be more of a hindrance than it would be a help, because no one's gonna use the sidewalk. There isn't one to it or from it. And I don't know that Mr. Hubbard didn't ask for the removal of the sidewalk from the site plan, but we don't have that in our letter.
I was told that it was absolutely impossible to not put the sidewalk in. I don't know how how correct the information is.
You know, I guess if the applicant didn't ask for something, we can't give them something they didn't ask for.
We've been talking to the township, having been told that there was no ifs, ands, or buts, there was no exceptions to the rules, that either the sidewalk had to be put in, or we had to pay an equal amount to the township.
Okay? So it's a non-issue right now.
And I assume that's the law and of the land, and that's what I've been told, that there are no ifs, ands, or buts, or exceptions.
Thank you. Okay, you have your waiver.
Engineer had a point.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Hubbard's correct. We have had some discussions. I think Mr. Hubbard was in talking to Mr. Dunn. They called me on the phone. And, basically the two options are either put the sidewalk / safety path in the ground, or you can do a cash in lieu of. If you do the cash in lieu of,
then you need to approach the safety path committee, I believe, and get approval from them. And then they make a recommendation to the planning commission that brings it here. So I don't know that you could be looking at that tonight because that hasn't gone to the safety path committee, but those generally are your two options, so. Not that you,
Those are the only two?
Yes.
Yes.
No other kinds of buts?
not the way that the ordinance is written, that's correct. I mean,
Right. We need to present your motion, or is everybody good with where it stands?
Dumpster's been waived.
Yes, that's true. We're on the site plan level. Okay, seeing none? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. And then, of course, you do know you have to correct what's in the planner's letter, right?
That's what I just ascertained.
And I can get in touch with you about what exactly needs to be done. It's really just a resubmittal of one sheet, just getting rid of the dumpster enclosure note on there. That way we have the most up-to-date site plan at our office.
Okay. I haven't seen a copy of the letter, but
Okay, I'll make sure you get it.
thank you.
Okay, then let's move to new business item B, waiver request to section 8.7A and 8.7C of the zoning ordinance, 7A for Puritan investment.
Hi, Al Carashaw, Puritan Magnetics, Puritan Investment, 533 South Lapeer. Excuse me. We purchased a building at 533 South Lapeer and renovating it so we can move into it and expand our business. In doing so, that building had a well, and we wanted to put fire suppression in the building. And to do that, we needed to tap in the water supply. So the water supply was right at Hubbard Spring, right behind us, not too far, about 80 feet. But we were required to run about 345 feet of 8-inch main and put a fire hydrant in, which we did. Well, in doing so, we had to tear up some asphalt that was in there. It was asphalt that wasn't in that great shape to begin with. And we are requesting that we can resurface that with asphalt millings. It doesn't get used. It's not a primary access. There are exceptions in the ordinance. If it's there's no loading, turnaround, storage areas, receive only limited use, and not used for employee parking, customer parking, or primary access. And that would fall into that category.
Okay, should we start with the planner review?
Yes, thank you. So as the applicant said, they're requesting a waiver of the hard surface paving requirement, and that's in section 8.7A, which states that parking lots, driveways, and loading areas for non-residential uses shall be paved with either asphalt or concrete. However, a waiver can be issued where 3 conditions are met. These 3 conditions are where driveways, loading, turnaround, or storage areas receive only limited use and are not used for employee parking, customer parking, or primary access. Where gravel surfacing, or number 2, where gravel surfacing and potential problems arising from dust or scattered gravel will not impact neighboring properties. And number 3, where hard surfacing will significantly increase stormwater runoff and create a potential for flooding and or soil erosion. Now, because this is only a waiver request and not a site plan request, a formal site plan wasn't submitted and wasn't required. A sketch plan was submitted which showed the area where the asphalt millings will be. The sketch plan shows where parking and primary access is. From a planning perspective, I really don't have any issues with the asphalt millings of the location. However, I just ask that the applicant, ensure or provide information about what this rear area is used for, if it's used for loading and unloading, as well as any entrances that are in the back. I don't know if there's any customer entrances or...
No, we don't have customers that visit us. There's several entrances in that building. There's 5 overhead doors and about 8 pedestrian doors. So parking would be out front. In the front of the building, we have an overhead door there for truck traffic. We've got an entryway for employees, So we wouldn't have to use the back, although you can access the back from the east side of the building.
Right. So in terms of what the back is being used for now or will be used for, it won't be used for loading and unloading? What?
Probably not.
Okay.
No, and if it had to be, excuse me, because there is a door back there, if it had to be, then, I mean, a truck or somebody can go around the east side of the building.
Yeah, so I mean, those are the three, in terms of meeting the three criteria for waivers, I think it does meet those, given the information that the applicant has provided. That's one waiver that would need to be issued. Another waiver, which may not necessarily be required, but I'd recommend that you discuss as well, is the setback waiver. Section 8.7C states that parking areas shall not encroach upon perimeter greenbelts. It's the 20-foot greenbelt required along all property lines. As you can see on the sketch plan or on the aerial, it goes right up to the property line, but this is an existing nonconformity. So really the waiver is just, it's reaffirming a waiver just for our records, ensuring that the Planning Commission understands it's an existing nonconformity. So you have two waivers you're looking at. One, I think, is a given, which is the greenbelt waiver. The other, I think, it's up to you to determine whether or not these three conditions have been met, given the information provided by the applicant. I know that the township engineer has some comments about the engineering standards, but from a planning perspective, I don't have any issue with the asphalt.
Okay. Mr. Sharp?
Yeah, with regards to this particular item, our hands are kind of tied on this, the way that the engineering design standards are written. The use 8.7 of the zoning ordinance says that it has to be asphalt or concrete. So then that deflects over to the engineering standards, and we have our certain cross sections of asphalt and concrete. Asphalt millings are not an acceptable hard surface with the engineering design standards there. As Matt indicated, there is no additional stormwater, runoff, so that's not an issue there. The area was asphalt before, may not have been in the best condition, but it was asphalt before. And the water main plans that were approved, they showed a asphalt cross section going back in. So that's what we assumed would be happening there. I know Mr. Crawshaw has been doing a very nice job up there. I had to put in some additional water main and so forth, but again, our hands are kind of tied on this one with regards to the ordinance. If this were approved, you may want to consider a timeline or something. You may not want it to remain asphalt millings for the next 5 years or 10 years or something. That would be a consideration. And I just kind of deflect back to the Health Quest. Health Quest came in a couple years back, and they said, oh, we're going to put some wood chips back in this area here, but nobody's going to park on them or anything. Well, they've been parking on that since day one. Now, wood chips and asphalt millings, totally different materials. The asphalt millings are definitely a better surface for drivability and so forth than parking on the wood chips. But I just wondered what sort of a precedent this would set. Do you get the delivery areas behind Meyer or something, saying, well, it's really not used a whole lot, so we're just going to put asphalt millings back there or something. So I would just caution you on that as well in your decision. But that's what we have.
Okay, commissioners?
I was looking at this, kind of at that same thought. The portion almost looks kind of a circular drive, so kind of circles back around and it goes back in front of the buildings or behind the buildings that front of Pier Road there. But that area in front of the building, is that driven around? You can drive around?
You drive around the entire building.
Okay, so I have some concerns when I'm looking at the elements required for issuing the waiver. It says where driveways or loading or turnaround receive only limited use or are not used for employee parking, customer parking, or primary access. It's really kind of the primary access when you're going around the building. I'm most concerned about that section where the circular part is and not as much as that area right in front of the building. For me, I would say, pave that area, in that turnaround area now and have a waiver of a timeline, for the rest.
Which circular area?
Where are you at here, Kelly?
Yeah. expand
This
it
section
right
up
there.
in here?
Yep, right there. To pave just that area and then leave the rest of the lanes.
The green area, the grass, there's a fire hydrant there now.
There's a fire hydrant here,
Right.
right?
You can't drive through there now.
Is there a fence there too?
No,
No, there's no fence, you can get through some of these areas. That would be my only area of concern, is right there.
that falls on the auto repair shop, there, there wasn't.
The drive you're talking about, Callie, isn't even on his property, that's not even his, that's technically the heavy border line is the property line right there. And that circle drive technically is from years past before the property was split and everything, so that driveway there is not part of his driveway, it's not even, has nothing to do with it.
So this section is.
That section does.
Just that little bit right
Correct.
there. And then there's a full drive, that drawing doesn't show it to the east side of the building, but that drive goes all the way back, or that part driveway covers way more than what that is showing on the right.
Right. I'm not concerned as much as what's in front of that building, just that area of that driveway that kind of
This
connects,
section here, right?
or that parking lot area that connects.
Wait a minute,
This section.
right there.
Yep.
That area,
We have
I'm
the
not
building.
concerned, I am concerned just with that area there.
Well, that's not an access area, that's not meant to drive from my parking lot to the neighbor's parking lot.
Well, there's no real barrier to stop it, but people can park there, right? There's no parking lot.
No, that's someone else's property.
Where the dotted area is, that's not a parking lot?
But where the dotted area is.
Where he has his
Yes.
cursor.
Yeah, yes.
That's the parking lot. Right, and so customers and employees can park there as the primary parking lot. That's the only part I'm concerned about, because it's the primary parking lot. It's not limited, it's the primary parking lot. That's my only concern. I mean, the others might feel different, you know. The other component is, it's a three-phase component, it's not one or two or three. The other one is, gravel surfacing, or, dust. Well, dust could be a component there if people are driving through especially. And then, the other element is where, you'd show that paving would reduce your impervious surfaces where flooding would be a problem, and that's not a problem, that's not a condition either. So that's why I'm just saying, just that one little area is what we're giving now. I wouldn't have a problem deferring the rest into the future, so that if you want to expand or do some landscaping or something, you could do something more flexible in the front.
Chief, did you have anything?
No, I was comfortable with it because I've got plenty of access on each side of the building. Where the main drive goes around to get to the back of it. That was very narrow actually going through there, so I wouldn't normally take a truck through there because it's pretty much like one lane going through there.
Yeah.
So it's not used for driveway, it's not used for anything, it's just there.
Now, there's two hydrants that are both active on each end there?
There's a hydrant right on the property line from Mr. Hubbard's, and then they extended it all the way to the north, and there's a hydrant there at the very north end.
Okay.
I can shed a little light on that. I have spent hours and hours and hours in that parking lot, and probably driven it 400 or 500 times over 4 years. I helped take care of that parking lot. That road through there is definitely a one-lane road. It's not very often traveled. And that front area where you're talking about, Callie, I've never seen cars parked in there on a regular basis.
I'm not concerned about the front.
No, there's hardly any cars ever parked in the front. They're towards the right side as you're looking at that building because of the way the entrances are set up. And the back area of that building is, if you go down that, you kind of take your own risk back in there because that asphalt's pretty rough back there if there's any. So you're talking about ground millings or you're talking about chunks?
Asphalt millings, ground millings.
Ground millings. I wouldn't have a problem with them doing that there.
First off, that northern piece of your property has been easemented for a road, correct?
Correct.
So the township and the village are working together to put a road connecting Glassby and M24 in there.
Correct.
Once the village finds the money, the township money, working with the gravel supplier, there's still concerned talks about putting the road in there. Your primary access is to the north. Your primary parking is to the north. You can't get a semi around back to park. I mean, it just won't fit in there. So all of your activity goes on in the front. If you need to get around the building, you could go around to the western side on the milled asphalt if you had to.
Absolutely.
If you had to, you could plant grass in there and drive on the grass if you still
Exactly.
wanted to drive through there. So you're looking at this as kind of like an emergency entrance exit. It's not a primary entrance exit. It's over the top of a water main. Yeah, I have no problem.
On that island there, Callie, the south side of it is not a normal road. That's not a road that people would come and go from. That would, because that's the back part of that shop where their garage comes out. And they push their cars out through that. And a lot of times you can't even get through there if you wanted to, because they have, on their property, they have cars and things there waiting for service.
Yeah.
It's an interesting piece of property.
Well, you're sure, you say, but the loading and that's one component. I mean, the ordinance says where it's not used for parking. I mean, it's a parking lot. That's where I stopped. That's where I'm reading it black and white. It says it's not used as a parking lot. Well, it is.
That area is not used for a parking lot.
It's not straight, right?
Nothing is straight in there. It's kind of free for all. And the concern too, with if it's gonna, expand the traffic to go to Glassview, that's gonna need more people on there, and more people might find a way to cut through.
Mr.
I was, when he was, the applicant was stating that there was no activity on this section of the parking lot, that it was gonna be just dormant. I was thinking what Mr. Curtis had just alluded to, wouldn't it be cheaper just to put dirt there and throw grass down and just,
Probably.
Yes, if that's gonna be the setback, I would,
I mean,
I
that
would
would,
say if you wanted
that
to
would
say
probably
convert it to a setback.
take care of your setback issue, and
Yeah.
if you have to drive on it, you have to drive on it.
Right. I think the chief would probably prefer
I
access to
prefer
the...
it was open, so I would still have access if I had to go back through there. And I can drive on asphalt millings, not rest, so I can drive on gravel road. but then-
Or grass, yeah.
Was there anything between when you applied for the water main and you had it to asphalt? What has changed to make it out of the millions?
Well, just my inexperience at all of this. I really hadn't thought about the aspect of putting the asphalt down until we had a pre-construction meeting. And I guess I saw it in the prints, but again, just my inexperience. We thought we could put gravel down or something inexpensive. And I mean, we want to address that parking lot at some time. Don't know when that'll be. If the road ever does go through, we probably would do something with that parking lot and resurface it all. But that all kind of remains to be seen.
I'm having a hard time holding my glasses and writing.
Is there a way that, I don't know if we're planning to do something where, say, after a period of time, a year or something, we can look back at it and revisit it?
How about this? If and when the easemented roadway gets put in, he addresses the situation.
That's too indefinite.
Okay.
The only thing is, I'm trying to be, reasonable and fair with other business owners who have to comply and also setting standards, for other buildings that we have that, kind of predate some of the enforcement issues in the ordinance. And so we have a lot, requests for gravel and stuff like that. So I don't want to just say, well, it's okay, where do we stop? But if we say in this case, it's okay for now because of these circumstances, but we're going to revisit it in a year or 2 years, that gives us an opportunity to fix it at some point if it's necessary. Or we can say it's okay, it's been okay for 2 years to not complain. That is a point of time to relook at it.
And I have a question too. This section here, is this your actual property line here?
Yeah, that's a property line.
You can drive through it.
But you can drive through here on this.
Well, I own that
How many roads
property.
is this?
I own that property too.
Just put it well back.
Because one thing I was thinking about too is if and when that road did go through, probably wipe out a few spaces up in this area maybe. So then you may want to use this as a rear parking lot at some point.
But you never know, but that's, like we said, down the road, if we put a road in, we probably would do a lot more work to our building at that point. Make it look, give it some more curb appeal. It's not the most beautiful building. Yeah,
I've been there a lot.
but again, we don't have traffic coming in, we don't have visitors, so
Yeah.
it's gonna suit our purposes.
Any other discussion points, Mr. Sharp?
I just thought, like structurally, the asphalt millings, they're fine, they hold up. We do allow gravel roads, private roads and things like that through the township, and the asphalt millings are as good, if not better, when they bind up really tight in there. It's just, again, that the ordinance tells us it has to be asphalt or concrete, that's the big thing. There are instances where asphalt millings are good, they're used and so forth. And honestly, this may be a very good application for it in this location here. It's just that the ordinance says concrete or asphalt, so.
To be used for parking,
Excuse me?
for parking.
Parking or,
For parking or,
Right.
well, what if he designates it as a no throughway and no parking? And only the chief can use it for getting his vehicles through in an emergency?
Yeah, again, I'm not disagreeing or saying that this may not be.
I mean, would that violate the ordinance then?
It would still violate the ordinance.
If he posts it's not a parking lot
We
or
waive it, it
throughway?
would be a violation of an ordinance.
Yeah, if you waive it, then there's no issues at all.
Well, as it stands right now, it can't be used as a parking lot because that's one of the conditions.
yeah.
So, putting a sign there would ensure that it will never be used, but for you to approve this waiver, the applicant has to express that it's not going to be used for parking, either employee parking or customer.
Right, that's what I was saying, when I kept reading it, it looks like a parking lot. How do you get past that point?
Commissioner Curtis?
A question for the applicant, is this gonna be used for parking?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna try this, see if everybody likes it. I move that the planning commission waive the hard surface paving requirements contained in section 8.7A for Puritan Investment LLC, parcel ID 04-26-303-014, 533 South Lapeer Road. The granting of this waiver is based upon the finding that the proposed driveway surface meets the condition for granting a waiver in section 8.7.A.1.2 and 3. If and when the easemented roadway is installed to the north, the pavement will be installed. Also, we will revisit this issue in 2 years to ensure no complaints have been received, and this will be marked no parking. End of motion.
I second.
It's been moved by Mr. Curtis, seconded by Mr. Knoll. Any discussion on the motion?
So process.
My only
Mr.
question is, I heard a 2-year comment. Do we have a system in place that will bring it back in 2 years? How would we red flag that, or who would be responsible for red flagging that to bring it back, to review it again in 2 years?
My piggyback to that 2 years is the motion was specific to the term that if there was a complaint, I would like to broaden it to, we can revisit it to determine if it's still appropriate, whether there's a complaint or not.
I don't think that's how his motion stated. I think
Yeah, it
it
just
said
said,
he would review it in 2 years and.
Also,
see if
we
there was
will
a complaint.
revisit in 2 years to ensure no complaints have been received
Well, we're still gonna
and will
revisit.
be marked as no parking.
well, if we're revisiting it to ensure no complaints, that's the limitations of that, meaning, if I were the petitioner, what I'm hearing is as long as there was no complaints, he doesn't have to do anything. I don't want to be that specific. I would just say we'd like to revisit it in 2 years to see if it's still appropriate, for whatever reason.
I guess is it enforceable too? Who's gonna enforce it?
I won't remember.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's in the minutes if
You
you
really
do
are.
the search.
You did search, right there. Yeah, there's another, so you got 2 years, it'll be marked no parking.
Well, what I'm hearing is you're marking it no parking now, not in 2 years.
Correct.
Correct. Right.
I guess a question, another question I have, does it stay with the property indefinitely? What happens if they sell it to somebody else and they use it for a different purpose? And then they end up starting to try to use that as a parking lot or a pathway?
Oh, it would run with the land. If they, however, do start using it as a parking lot, then it would be a violation of the zoning ordinance and of the granted waiver.
But again, somebody would have to know that, to say that it's a violation.
If we amend the motion to say that it's, parking is not allowed. Even with the granting of the waiver, it has to be marked no parking, but also parking is not allowed.
And will be marked as no parking, and no parking will be allowed.
Mr.
I'll
Noel?
change my motion to amend that.
I'll second the changed motion.
Did you consider amending to leave it more open-ended as opposed to just for complaints?
Could you give me a proposed reading? So I could-
Review it in 2 years to see if the waiver still applies.
Right.
Also, we will revisit in 2
Yeah, take out the
years
complaint part, just let.
to ensure the waiver still applies.
Yeah,
I'll change my motion.
or the waiver is still appropriate.
I'll change my motion to include also, we will revisit in 2 years to ensure the waiver still applies.
How do we ensure that we revisit it in 2 years?
We could, just a suggestion, when we grant land improvement permits, it's through a system called the SNA. I don't know, you could tie it with the land improvement permit and put a note, or schedule an appointment really in 2 years from the date of granting of the land improvement permit to do a zoning inspection. It's just a suggestion. I don't know how you could draft a motion to tie it to the system or not.
We could just ask the building department to include it in BSNA through, I don't know if you have to tie it to the motion, but that's how we would follow up with it. We don't follow up.
Deanna, recording secretary, can you ask the building department if that's feasible?
It is.
I'll call the roll, or the,
I'll second whatever he said. Okay?
Those in favor of the motion?
aye.
I think we have to do a roll call. Let's do it.
I need to hear it again.
Okay.
I'm confused.
All right. He was a little late on his draw. Can you reread your motion, please?
Sure can, the whole thing. I'll go slow so you can understand it,
Give
Eddie.
the ID or anything like
I
that.
move that the planning commission waive the hard surface paving requiremements contained in section 8.7A for Puritan Investment LLC, parcel ID number 04-26-303-014, 533 South Lapeer Road. The granting of this waiver is based upon the finding that the proposed driveway surface meets the condition for granting a waiver contained in section 8.7.A.1, .2, and .3. If and when the easemented roadway is installed, the pavement will be installed. Also, we will revisit in 2 years to ensure the waiver still applies, and this area will be marked as no parking, and no parking will be allowed. End of motion.
Do I second it? I re-second the motion.
Okay. Been a request for roll call vote, Mr. Secretary?
Oh, I mean,
I
I'm
don't
still
think we need one, I
digesting
checked,
the
we don't need
motion.
one.
All right. Commissioner Myers.
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Knoll.
Yes.
Commissioner Hunwick. Yeah, yes. Commissioner Curtis.
Yes.
Commissioner Spiz.
No.
No. Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, I move that the planning commission waive the greenbelt parking setback requirement contained in 8.7.c for Puritan Investment LLC, parcel ID number 04-26-303-014, 533 South Lapeer Road. The granting of this waiver is based upon the findings that the existing driveway location directly abuts the western and southern property lines, and the existing nonconformity will not be increased.
I second that motion.
Moved by Mr. Curtis, seconded by Mr. Knoll. Is there any discussion on the motion?
That wasn't noticed in the agenda. That secondary component?
8.7A and 8.7C.
We talked about proposed resurface using asphalt milling. Didn't say anything about green belt or setback.
Yeah, it's not described. It is mentioned in waiver request in the description or in the bold part. Waiver request to section 8.7A and 8.7C.
There's nothing in our ordinance that requires any kind of a hearing or anything like that. Because some parts it does and some it doesn't.
You wouldn't need a hearing for a waiver request since this is tied to a land improvement permit, not necessarily a site plan. We cannot grant the land improvement permit for this new pavement unless the planning commission approved the waiver. Now this is a secondary waiver just to reaffirm the location of it. I threw it in there, going back in the minutes, that we have some proof that we acknowledge this nonconformity.
So it's in the same location.
It's in the exact same location.
Okay, I get it. I'm fine.
Any other discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, that waiver passes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, then we're going to move back to unfinished business, the master plan review. We're going to take a 1-minute recess if anyone in the audience wishes to leave.
Just that.
Okay, let's get back to it. Master plan review. Matt, you want to give us an intro here?
Sure. Should have the most updated version, draft of the master plan dated October 5th, 2017. I'll briefly describe what has been modified since the last version, and then discuss what areas I think should be focused on. Again, this is your master plan, so I'll leave it up to you to discuss the details. But the first change that we made was on page 55. The previous version's public input section was left blank. We have modified it to reflect or summarize the main highlights from the online survey.
Page 55?
Page 55, that's what I had. Should be under public, maybe not page 55 of the whole PDF packet.
Yeah, it might be.
It's page 55 of the master plan document. I don't know what.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's the first page of goals, objectives, and strategies.
Got it.
Again, we're going to include the whole survey as an appendix, but I wanted to just put this as a little prologue here to start off the goals, objectives, and strategies section. On page 84 of the master plan document, we updated the extractive sites map to include the boundaries of the urban service areas. We didn't change any of the other boundaries of the extractive sites. We just thought it would be a good idea to show how these sites relate to the urban service areas. Yep, right there. So we have the primary and the secondary urban service areas. On the future land use map, which is page 91, we made the modifications based on our last discussion, which was 2 or 3 months back. The main changes, the first one is the alternative future land use designations. You can see labeled A and B, maybe not so well on the small map here, but A is the golf course, Hills of Oxford or Oxford Hills, I was going to place to go.
Oxford Hills.
Oxford Hills, it's still getting too into Oxford Hills Golf Course, we have a future land, its primary future land use designation is private park, and we have it as rural residential or alternative future land use. And then the golf course to the north is at Devil's Ridge, whatever it's called, the golf course to the north labeled B. Again, its primary future land use is is private park and conservation, with its secondary alternative future land use being Hunt Country Estates.
What page was that one?
91.
97.
97?
You're on mine.
97 and
Okay.
I have 91 on the.
You have 91 in the document.
well, it's 97 in the,
Gotcha.
yes.
And then the one of the other major changes is around Lakeville Road, around the lakes and that extractive site. We attempted to make areas surrounding the lakes a little higher density, being suburban residential, 1 acre. Looks like we missed one lake there. These boundaries they can be changed obviously, but we wanted to have a starting point here. We discussed last time keeping the density around the lakes a little higher to potentially allow for sewer hookup, and then the rest of the sites remaining more rural. And then we corrected the mixed use district boundaries. The last version, I think, had swapped the mixed use and the office research. Although now I'm noticing we do not even have our office service district on here, which is a mistake on our part. We need to add, we have a research office district, or future land use designation, and an office service future land use designation. So I think the areas I'd circled, the areas along Gateway Drive, and the area, that pink area just to the north of the village of Oxford, need to be changed from mixed use to office service.
Pat, can we go back
Yes.
a few statements ago? You said you forgot one of the lakes off of Lakeville?
Well, there's off of Lakeville, if you see one of the, you can zoom in, I don't know if you can zoom in at all,
Yeah.
to just north of the mobile home park there. See that there's one lake there that it's the lighter yellow.
This one?
Yeah.
I don't know if you consider it a lake. Should match these two.
It should, I mean, if we want to keep it consistent and that the densities around the lakes are higher, we may want to extend the suburban residential district around that lake as
You
well.
consider a lake, what do you consider a pond?
It's a great question. I'm considering all of these, one or the other, for the sake of the master plan.
Where it says B at the top
Yeah.
of the map there, I think so, no. Oh, it does, it's just cut out. What is that?
Devil's Ridge.
That's the Devil's Ridge.
That's where Devil's Ridge Golf Course, where we said we would make it to the surrounding
So
zoning.
So it's primary future
the
land use.
overlay then is, would,
Well, it's primary future land use because right now it's the golf course, so its primary is private recreation.
Okay.
In the case that it is ever sold, we want to have an idea of what it should be zoned to. So the future land use designation matches the surrounding area, which is Hunt Country Estates, 10-acre lots.
We said we should just continue this on, should we
Yeah.
ever change over, right?
well, we said the same future, that's why I was trying to see how that shows it.
No, it has the A and the B, and on the legend, there's an alternative future land use portion at the bottom. And then we have a description of what that means in the private recreation conservation area, or discussion.
My question is on A, you have that at Hunt Country Estates at 10 acres.
That's B.
A.
Yeah, that's why I keep going, B is Hunt Country Estates.
Yes,
on the top.
B is Hunt Country Estates in the north,
And A.
10 acres, and A is rural residential, which is 2.5 acres.
Doesn't look like it's colored
The color is wrong.
Well, we have a primary, maybe I should address this, or if you guys are confused, maybe a lot of other people will be confused here, but
Yes.
the primary, we have a primary future land use designation. That being private recreational, because that's what the site is currently used for, and in the immediate future, that's what it's going to be used for.
Correct.
However, in the case that it is sold and no longer is used as private recreation, the township should have a guide as to what the proper land use designation and zoning should be. So in the case that it is sold, this property should revert to its secondary alternative future land use, which is rural residential. And yeah, if you guys are confused, maybe I should address that either within the map or within a separate section
I
here.
think on the map, if you say alternative future use, should, yeah.
Okay, that's a, yeah, good call. But that's the intent, so the one that it's shown, the hash marks, the underlying color, is the primary. And then the B is just referring you to this part of the legend saying what its alternative
So I
future.
understand what you're doing, we're not encouraging it to change use.
No,
We're
we're
saying
not.
that's what we would like, because we really wouldn't like that.
Right.
But if, for some reason, it was determined that it was going to change use, that's what we would choose.
Exactly, as it is now with the golf course, you are all happy with that and are okay with seeing it continue as a golf course. However, if it's sold to a developer, well, we have nothing to go off of. We have no designation that we can revert to. So this is just a just-in-case type scenario that we have some type of guide. But yeah, I can help, right?
What's the reasoning on the 20s and the 10s? I mean, it's like half size, it's half the size. When you're looking at scales, like, you know, having one subdivision here and the one right across the street, it's double the size lot. It's pretty magnitude, you know, of difference. On the properties that you're showing south of Noble, like, you've got this patch of the 20 acres, and then there's skip to 10s, and then you're back to 20s. There's no rhyme or reason, and there's so few properties left in that zoning.
Yeah, I mean, that was based off of the existing future land use. That wasn't something that I had called or decided. Everything, you know, that we haven't discussed so far in this version of the master plan has been carried over from the existing future land use map.
Yeah, it seems just really arbitrary.
Yeah, and then we can obviously change it as part of this update, but that was a carryover from the last one.
I mean, I'm never one to say, hey, you know, let's make lots smaller, but in realistic terms, how would you uphold that? Really? What are you trying to, I could see that not being upheld. There's a lot of large acreages, even within these zoning districts that are still available, but they could be really split up.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, you've got a handful of people literally with 20s or more. And then, you know, right across the street's 10, but then on the other side, I mean, I'm surrounded by one of them. I've got 10s on one side and 20s on the other. Why do they get half the size they do? Do the same thing. It's the same concept.
Right.
I think if we had better controls over how it's developed, the lot size is less significant. 20 isn't really a farm, you know, in terms of real productive agriculture. It's good for horses and stuff like that, and raising animals, but it's really limited use. It's just a point of discussion, just to think about in terms of that better planning
Are you saying,
of that.
we don't really need to have a 10 and a 20?
Right, we don't need a 10 and a 20, we need better controls on development and how we're gonna preserve the agriculture and the farmland and keep that area open. You know, this false 10 and 20 is gonna protect it, doesn't do the job. And it really, I just don't see it holding out, and I don't see how it's benefiting anything.
So would you suggest like a consolidation of the two districts, or?
Mine is more long-term thinking. Of course, everyone doesn't want to really spend the time on it, but it's important, and it's going to be a future thing. But it's to really look at that area, not in terms of zoning acreage, it's about how you're going to preserve the use.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a smaller lot, but if you have open space and trails, and that's more of the PUD concept, where you're becoming an integrated network community like some of these others have done.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
These places in Florida and California, they're just thriving, and they bring in so much business to the area, because we have, you know, the big farm south of us in the area of the Tons.
Yeah, and I think it's just, this was probably, when it was done with the last one, was probably just based on the existing lot size, because you have, you know, the larger parcels, which are 20 acres, And then you have, when you go a bit north, they're smaller lots, they're existing smaller lots, so it goes down to 10 acres.
Right, and some of our biggest farms
Mhm.
are on the trend.
Yeah. So I mean, it's,
I'm just throwing it out there because we really need to discuss it at some point in time on, the lot size isn't what's gonna save it and make that area special, it's how we plan it.
yeah, it's just, I mean, I think the way that it was probably made in the first place was based on the existing lot sizes, because the future land use guides the zoning district, and the zoning district determines how big your lot is. So they didn't want to create a bunch of non-conforming lots in terms of lot area.
It was kind of like they all wanted to go to tens and they just didn't get to that part. Because we had one owner, that's the Higmonts, that had that big forequarter there. And then you had that, area to the north.
Yeah, I don't know why the Hickmont one was,
Well, that's because it was all family split up so that they weren't,
yeah.
and some of it was in a trust, I think, or preservation type thing. I think some of it was in a trust. But the area to that northeast was kind of like just left out. I just don't think it ever got up there. And I'm not encouraging it to go down in size. I'm just saying, I just don't see it
That's what I-
realistic. Yeah, here it comes out in the press tomorrow.
Yes.
I'm familiar with a 10-acre piece of property intimately in Florida, which was split off of a 400-acre farm.
Wellington.
Well, this is in Funiac Springs, I own it. And the 10 acres can be split to 1-acre lots, but you take 100 feet from each side and put the roadway and the horse travel to the main park. And in the main park, there are 10-acre lots around it, so that you can equestrian through all that travel alongside the cars.
That's how Wellington is and stuff. You can make
Yeah.
smaller lots as long as it's an integrated plan to get you to the hub of the main farms.
Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Yeah, because we have, the great farm that we have to the south, and we have a great farm into the north, and we have agriculture starting up, and it's pretty exciting for us. We have the Bell River Farms Organic is now, in Oxford. That's a huge distributor. They distribute to like all of Rochester and all that. So we really have something big. To spend some time thinking about how we want to incorporate it would be great.
Yeah,
Maybe at some point there could be a horse park in there.
Ours was done by the developer, and they easemented that pathway through there. But they worked with the township to get down to the smaller lot, retaining 300 acres for the park and bigger lots. So I don't know how you could do that there, but.
Well, there's properties available. I mean, there's a golf course that'd make a great cross-country course and horse park. Who knows? Money could come forward. You just never know what happens if you leave your options open.
You're gonna change the name of their roadway?
Yeah.
Any other comments?
I just look at, so explaining now the Oxford Hills golf course, that zoning, like when you're on A, the future zoning would go to what?
So in the case that one of these two, or both, or none, are sold to a developer,
Right.
and they have an intention to develop it for some type of single-family residential, well, if we don't have any alternative future land use, well, our land use designation is private recreational.
I understand.
Yeah.
What is the zoning? What's the acreage
Oh, of the alternative one?
of the alternative?
2.5
Okay,
acres.
sorry. Yeah, so A at Oxford Hills, it would be rural residential at 2.5 acre minimum lot size. And that's based on some of the surrounding areas. And then B, the Devil's Ridge would be 20.
Right. I'm just thinking about Oxford Hills, 2.5 acres.
Mhm.
You've got the Hills of Oxford condominiums, you've got the mobile home community across, you've got the commercial that's right out front there. and there's water and sewer available to it right there.
Yeah.
I mean, we can set it up as 2.5 acres, but I guarantee you that somebody's gonna come in with some sort of a PUD or
Sure.
something
Well,
anyway. So it doesn't
yeah.
make sense to set it up as a 2.5 acre right now, or, you know, I'm not saying to make it 12,000 square foot lots through that whole thing.
And I think the
But maybe
intention,
something a little more realistic in the 1 acre area or
Sure.
something might make a little bit more sense with the availability of the utilities and the proximity to M24 right there.
well, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the intention was, it was understood that, yeah, it was probably gonna be some type of PUD, but to encourage a cluster development in this area, so using the 2.5 acre as a baseline for determining density, but then allowing, clustering around the lake. That way we're preserving open spaces here. It's a guideline for the overall density of the site. We can have a discussion on that if.
Yeah, the comment was that, it's a golf course now, that's what the public expected, that's what, that's what was, expected, and so all of a sudden you say, we're gonna, take the golf course and we're gonna make it, smaller lot homes from what our whole average is, and I didn't think that was an equitable way to do it. So by starting at the 2.5 acres, we can preserve some of that beautiful golf course into a linear park and some trails and things like that for the whole community if they want to come in with PUD and increase density. But you have to start somewhere. If you start with 1 acre, there's nowhere to go. It's just going to be all built up. 2.5 acres encourages a better plan.
Okay.
And a number that's more feasible to work with. I mean, why would they be guaranteed the smallest density or the heaviest density that our township offers for, the township component?
And I wasn't going after the 12,000, okay, looks like we.
The property to the northwest, I thought was bigger.
Okay.
That's
something.
That's a good point, and within the next section, which is the implementation, there's gonna be some sections on clustering and PUD provisions. And I think the intent, I don't think that any developer would develop 2.5 acre lots, but as a base density, that's what we can use as a starting point.
Sure.
And then encourage some innovative practices.
What colors does that northeast section correlate to? I'm still trying to put a number to that northeast section of the township.
Which,
It's like a light beige.
are you talking just north
That's
of?
not village residential.
The southeast. Which
I'm
one?
sorry, the southwest, southeast, yeah, southeast corner
Of the village there?
of the township, the southeast.
Oh, at the very, that
Yeah.
is.
That can't be, that's not,
I think that's rural residential.
yeah, but the colors, okay, that's rural residential, and then the darker one is 1 acre. Okay, and I think our discussion too on those 1 acre lots,
More colors.
Yeah, any more colors in the rainbow here?
well, the discussion we had on those 1 acre lots that's in between the two is most of those are developed homesteads that are very unlikely to split and develop. So even though the zoning is smaller, the lots were gonna stay bigger. So putting smaller lots on the one side would kind of change the character of the people that are already there developed. Right here, yeah.
Yeah, look at that. It's ridiculous.
See some.
Well, we've been entertaining the Tullamore people, and that's down to the 9,000 square foot lot size. That's just directly to the north of Oxford, Hills of Oxford Hills.
Okay, well, while we're on the future land use map, the only other discussion that I had intended for tonight was, again, this mixed use district. I'm still a bit caught up on what the intent is, what you want the intent to be. The previous master plan, if you go to page 89, it talks about the land use description. So it says it's intended to promote a mixture of compatible light, industrial, research, office, and commercial uses within a planned setting. The previous master plan had residential in there as well. I took it out and obviously can put it back in. But because we have mixed use zoning as an item on our zoning list as well, I want to have, and I think a township should have a good direction as to what exactly the detailed intent of this area is.
That's all the purple areas, right?
That's all, yeah, I guess it's coming up a bit different on there, but yeah, it's mixed use. It includes,
Here?
it includes whatever the legacy center color is, that's the mixed use. Yeah,
Here?
yeah, so that color is mixed use.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, that is a little bit about, shopping on the main floor and living on the upper floor.
Are we trying to be
Part
a
of it.
village?
Well, that's the thing, is most of it is outside of the urban service area. So in terms of having a walkable environment, I don't really see it, at least in my opinion, up in this area. I do see, in terms of mixed use, I could see a mixture of offices and light industrial and tech uses, making it just a flexible zoning district to go with the ebb and flow of the market. Residential, I personally don't see there as well, like a residential in a light industrial tech park.
It was, I believe that the red is heavy in industry.
The red is commercial. The dark red is commercial.
Then the mixed use was to break up between the residential, which would have meant lighter industry, office, research. Not to hold it down to research office, but to say it could be office, research, light manufacturing. That's what I picked it up as. That's how it's written here.
And what about, like commercial service uses, would that be
Yeah.
acceptable there as well?
But
Yes.
districts such as the Bonham, let's say they want to build a 3-level building. Bonham's all commercial, but they have lofts up above them, 2 levels of loft.
I don't think that's.
Sort of like they do in Auburn Hills.
I don't
Are
think
we
that's.
trying to compete with the village? I mean, I
No, I'm
have
just
points that we
wondering.
don't want to be that.
I'm just,
Yeah,
I would.
and I don't think that's what it was meant for, and I don't think you want that. That would put a village out into an industrial area.
Well, I'm not saying put in an industrial area, but what if a developer came in and wanted to put something like that on Market Street, for example, somewhere?
Right.
Where it might fit.
I could see that happening.
Okay.
So I think we have two kind of ideas, and you can really separate them into two. One is more of a walkable urban environment, which would be appropriate on Market Street, but that same type of, I don't think it would be necessarily terrible if that same type of use was put up, north of Dunlap, but I don't know if that's the intent up in that area. So you have two issues. You have combination or mixed uses within the same building, and then mixed uses within the same site, separate buildings. So
I didn't think we were trying to be that village kind of townhouse shop type thing. I think that even in our master plan, it's kind of saying we're not going to compete with the village. We're going to kind of make a transition to the more singular type of residential and then commercial office. But I think availability to have the light industrial and research office is a good concept for.
Yes.
In terms of, like, some of this too, I know we've started the discussion, like multifamily, we only have one density classification. It'd be nice to be more flexible. And most communities I see have a couple different multifamily designations, so there's some transitional zones. We're kind of 10 and 1 or 2. Single duplex and 10.
He's out of colors.
Polka dots.
no, that's a good point. It's up to the whole body here if that's something you want to see, and if so, we have to have a discussion about which would fall under multifamily 1 and which would be multifamily 2.
I looked around at all the communities around us, and we're like one of the densest with 10. And I thought that's what we wanted to be more rural, and it's not moving in that direction. We don't have anything else to choose from. Maybe we want some multifamily around the lake and things like that, but in zoning multifamily, if we're giving 10 per acre, that's where I have a problem. It's kind of setting that density pattern that's very high, and not a lot of flexibility for this board.
So let me hold up on that one. Pat, do you want to get a consensus from the commission about the,
Well, the mixed use
the mixed use,
residential.
thank you.
Yeah, that'd be,
Our definition of mixed use
that'd be great,
first,
because, yeah,
Yeah.
and then we'll get to the number of units.
that's fine.
Okay, so, I think I understand what Jack's perspective is, right?
Yes.
Nay on the residential above or anything like that. Just want light industrial,
Research
office.
Research office, light industrial,
and some commercial.
some commercial in there, yeah.
What's your feeling, Mr. Knoll?
I agree.
Mr. Spitz?
I think you need to have that option available, and just limit to where you put it.
So you want another color?
Yeah.
Mr. Unwick?
I kind of in Mr. Spitz's court, the other color, because of, there's some areas where I think it might be applicable.
Okay.
I agree, but we need to designate where we want to see it.
Okay, so
Here's the tiebreaker.
there's no, yeah.
No, it's 3-2 right now.
Well, I don't think they
No,
decide one way or
it's-
another on that.
It's 3-2. It'll be 3-3 if I go with.
True. That's all time.
But actually, I go with this side of the room, because I think there may be, I don't know what it is, but I think there may be a development that says he wants to have maybe multiple residential combined with some shops, combined with maybe some lofts above. That could come around where we put it, I don't know yet.
No, I mean,
So I
that's,
think we need designation for what they're asking for and a designation
yeah,
for.
because they're both good ideas, it's just that their intents are a little different. So if we want to do both, we need to have two different designations.
Correct.
And we can do that, and I think it would be more along the periphery of the village that it would apply.
Yep.
And maybe along, Market Street. That, and how I'm even thinking of a recent case where that designation may have worked out well too.
Yes.
But, that's, okay, so I can come up with an intent, and I can come up with some potential locations, nothing set in stone yet. Well, the master plan's not set in stone to begin with, but we can discuss those potential locations at the next meeting and the intent descriptions.
Perfect, okay.
As well as, I'll probably expand the discussion a little bit on the current mixed-use district, so we have a better idea.
Okay.
But we'll have two separate. Did you want to discuss more of the multiple family issue as well?
Yeah, I wanted you to reinstate your question, and then so we can kind of get a consensus on what we think we should.
Yeah, I'd like to consider specifying the zones where we want to transition, but offer at least two different densities in the multifamily zoning classifications to give the board more flexibility in transitioning. And I think 10 is too free anyways for this area to even start with. But, I mean, I looked at Orion's, they have 5 and 8 for some, so it should be nice to have that flexibility to be more comfortable saying we want multifamily in this area, to know that it's going to be more of a resort feel multifamily as opposed to a Royal Oak feel.
Why not just reduce the residential multifamily now? Why carry another one?
Well, I think we should reduce, but I also think, we were talking like around the lake, I'm looking at my secondary component as how that urban service district got expanded to that secondary tier. When did that happen? I don't remember that. But around the lake there, north of Myers. Maybe we want some multifamily around the lake there, but I don't want 10 per acre there, because it's transitioning right to an area that.
So we allow 10 per acre now,
I don't want 10 per acre.
but we allow 10 per acre.
Right, that's what I'm
I'm just
saying.
saying, why not just move to reduce it to 8 or 7 per acre?
It's an
Well,
ordinance.
we may want a 5 per acre thing.
It's an ordinance.
It's a flexibility option that, I don't know, I'll let the planner and engineer speak to that, but a lot of communities use it as a transition or as another tool
You
to
want
have
create
better
another color.
buffering.
Yeah, she wants another.
You want another color?
What's another 2 colors?
It gives us an option. that might be more palatable than a 10. And I'm looking at things that have come in front of us very recently.
Yeah, I won't disagree. I agree.
Yeah, and I think that's a valid comment, that 10 may be a little high to apply everywhere. Again, it's a matter of where you think a lower density should go and where you think a higher density should be applied. Because we only have a handful of parcels designated for future land use right now. And two or three of them are already developed.
Ms. Curtis?
Um,
Is
Yeah,
can I have a question for you first?
sure.
Getting to a lower RM number, is that first more of an ordinance change?
Like you say, RM, right now, it's an ordinance. It states that you can do this in RM. What I'm hearing is, we'd like to have an area where it's deviation from the ordinance, where you want to have an area that you want 5 per.
Yeah, whatever that number is.
Instead of 10 per, you want a 5 per.
Right.
Well, ultimately, it would lead to a new district.
You have to have a district you want to put it in, but then you'd have to have an ordinance that calls out RM1, RM2.
That's correct, yeah.
So if you have somewhere you'd like lower RM, we'd have to point that out.
Okay.
And then you'd have to change the ordinance to limit what was put in that area.
Okay.
And the same thing applies to the mixed-use district as well. There's no mixed-use zoning district now. Something would have to be created to meet the intent of the master plan.
So the only other way to do it now is through a PUD.
Right.
Correct. Or conditional zoning.
So what? We need to change the purple, some of those purples to where we would think this lower RM would be?
Well, I'm comparing it to where our future land use plan was before, had a lot more multifamily in big chunks, and it's kind of changed a bit. But those are some of the areas that would apply to. And we still have pretty large undeveloped gravel beds right here across the street from the township. There's one. And it's close to a development, so I don't know what could happen.
Yeah, I don't know the current densities of Abbey Ridge or of Hills of Oxford, but that could be used to determine what those are. They're not changing anytime soon, but we want to make sure it's right. But vacant sites,
Vacant sites zoned RM currently.
That's- we have down across Lapeer from Hills of Oxford, that's planned for RM at least.
Future land use.
And then we have a couple at, on Drainer, it looks like. Drainer and Augusta. And really, and then you have Abbey Ridge, which has already been approved. And I think then you have a couple rights at the southwest corner of the village and the township border along Seymour Lake.
Here.
So really, we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, about 10, 11 parcels.
Yeah, I guess my plan is, if we're saying, because we're supposed to be looking in the future, if in the next 10 years, we're not going to consider any multifamily in any of the gravel pits or the area north of Ray Road or the area across from Township Hall here, if that's the case, then we're fine with it is because we have limited numbers left of undeveloped multifamily.
Right.
But I'm trying to say, it happens to slip in on us. All of a sudden, a developer comes in, he says, I'm going to put multifamily there. And we don't seem to stop the train sometimes, but if we had a different option. But if we're going to put in there and really be clear in our master plan that we're not expanding multifamily outside of what we're specifying right here,
I
then it's
think,
fine.
don't you, I'm I'm asking a question, do you think we have that with future land use as the way it's proposed right now?
Well, I'm looking at the future land use plan,
Yes.
and I don't see anything designated as multiple family in that plan. I'm just worried that and maybe it's just a point that we could put there that if, in the near future, multifamily is considered because of a change in land use or demographics, that we would be looking at different densities other than 10
Yeah.
in our planning phase, so we know now where we're headed.
And another option I just want to introduce too is that within the last chapter, the implementation chapter, we have, I'm planning on putting in recommendations for the future regarding zoning. And that'll include lists of like explore this option, explore that. That could be put there as well. Explore secondary, explore another multiple family district with a lower density for areas.
Should multifamily be considered for areas outside of this area?
And that,
other options be considered for density?
That way you're introducing an implementation strategy for the future, which calls for creating a new district, and then it would be then up to kind of a case-by-case basis determining which properties should be rezoned to that district.
Right. And I also throw in there the fact that it's come right now that people have asked for rezonings to it. So even within this district where it's not specified that you're asking for rezonings, I'd say any rezoning in the future outside what's already specified should be considered to have less density available. That's where I'm going at. If somebody comes in now and wants to do it and add multifamily somewhere, we only have 10 to choose from.
Yeah.
Is there a way to have another choice without having it designated on the map?
I think you'd have to put that in the ordinance, because the ordinance is what they follow.
Right, but I'm saying, he's saying it has to be on the map, but does it have to be? Can we say?
No, it doesn't have to be on the map. We could say, for the future land use map, we have one RM district. However, in the implementation chapter, under the strategies to consider or implementation methods, one of the items could be explore adoption of a new multifamily residential district with a lower density, and conduct a study determining which property should take that lower density designation.
But say someone comes in here right now that's already within the area, close to the village and all that, and says, I want, this isn't selling, this commercial isn't good, whatever, I got all this other multifamily going in around me, I want to zone multifamily. I want to rezone and build in this development or this home,
Well, in that case, if you...
Yeah.
And then we go with the 10.
I'm going to go with the 10. I'd like a choice now to be available to the planning commission for any rezoned property in the future.
How do you put that in the master plan?
Well, again, it doesn't, the master plan is the guide. However, you can create we have one RM district, right, or one multiple family designation now. The zoning districts have one. There's nothing to prevent you from creating another RM district, as long as it's tied to the main areas indicated on the plan, and then rezoning them to RM, the lower district. That way it gives you an option if an applicant if you have that lower density in the zoning district and the applicant says, I want to zone it to RM, and get the 10 density per, 10 dwelling units per acre density, and you say, well, your surrounding land uses are lower in density, we would be favorable of the RM2, and our zoning map and our zoning districts have that as an option, even though the future land use map does, and that's perfectly legal too. So you have a lot of options here. You can add a new district in the new designation in the future land use map. You can simply add it as an implementation strategy and leave it as it is. Or you can still create a new district even if it doesn't 100% say that the master plan doesn't 100% say that it should happen. You still have an option. I think planning for it is obviously the best choice, but I think either that one or two are good choices, the future land use map change or just the implementation chapter.
the ordinance, even if you put it in the 5 for,
The areas
They
that
still
are
have
currently
to
already
extend.
zoned 10, get 10, but if we're going to rezone, we can choose then to say, we can rezone you to a 5
Rezone
or
something
Right, 'cause
a
either way, when you're looking at a rezoning application, you have to look at the surrounding land use.
right, that's only if they're rezoning from something other than the current.
I'm talking about the rezone.
So- Okay, so there's, yeah, that's the second point you gotta put down, that the ordinance has.
Well, that's, see, I thought tonight, probably during the ordinance review subcommittee talking, we were gonna bring up a list that we have to take to the
Yeah.
planning commission, to the township board.
That should be.
One of the suggestions I was gonna make was, based on this Waterstone event, they're filling in according to the ordinance. Now we're forcing them to go to a zoning, or to a conditional zoning. That, to me, that 10 units per acre, or whatever the ordinance says, is too much.
Yeah,
So what I wanted to do is change the ordinance to say, let's look at this. Do we need any more high-density residential multiples? If we believe we don't, let's change the ordinance to reflect that. And meaning, hey, what does it say now? 10? Let's get it down to 5.
yeah.
Let's make it more palatable to where we're at in our community.
And make it match what the master plan says it's supposed to do.
Yeah. Now, yeah, that runs hand in hand. We have to have that, do we have to have that master plan state that? Or do we take our current residential multiple and change the ordinance to say that you can't put 10, it's only 5?
You know, and you're gonna have a fight from those people who are already invested in those pieces.
Yeah, and it was just a question. Now that you're there, how do you?
Unfortunately, there's not a lot
Are
of.
these people invested with the purpose of doing
Oh, yeah.
residential multifamily?
Oh, yeah, they've invested that property based on what it's zoned.
So then they would be grandfathered.
Not a rezone.
Well, if they're,
Yeah.
There's no grandfather in rezoning.
well, I'm talking the ordinance.
No, there's no
There's no
grandfather.
grandfather in rezoning.
No, I'm talking in the ordinance. If he changes it from 10 to 5,
Then it's 5.
they can't be allowed to do 10 if they had to. the
No, that's why
property-
they're having two
No,
districts.
that's
Would accomplish it.
hearing now.
I think we're just making it complicated.
No, there's not that much multifamily that we have it's already existing. Shovel's kind of in the ground on
I
that.
think the
That one
easiest
is
thing is
set.
just to change the ordinance from 10 to 5, 7, whatever.
I personally think that, because there are so few, I personally think it wouldn't be that much to just look at each one and say which one should be 5, which one should be 10, then just create a district or a new designation. Because we only have a 10 or 11. You know, you look at the surrounding land uses, you determine what the density should be, and that's that. And then you have the implementation strategies and explore new, lower density
Or
multifamily
any
districts.
future ones, yeah.
Okay.
That's
All
my
right.
opinion.
Go that way.
All right, we'll do kind of the same thing with the mixed use. Just, I'll circle some areas and discuss it. Do you have any other comments on, that's all I had for the future land use map.
The urban service district, I'm
Yeah.
still trying to find out how that secondary component got in there. When did that happen?
I had brought that up towards the beginning, to reflect areas of potential sewer and water expansion.
I don't know in terms of like, do we have the capacity and things like that. It's been a long time since I've been on that board, but, urban service district is one of the best ways to control growth. So when you're opening it up, I know that the possibility of us keeping the zoning bigger than 1 acre, if you expand that urban service district, are pretty much nil. And so I'm really uncomfortable with the expansion without a lot more discussion on that, because I don't see why. It's not what that master plan has promised us all along, and the people coming in, and what I hear from the community is we want the density around the village. We still have a lot of vacancies and a lot of infill that we can do. I don't think we're at the point saying in the next 10 years, we want to expand that.
So you're suggesting just getting rid of the secondary urban service area?
Right, because putting it on is saying in the next 10 years, we're foreseeing that, and I'm not foreseeing that. We have a lot of infill that we can still be doing before we're looking at expanding, especially since, you know, our plan still says we want to be rural and we still want to have open space. And that is your buffer. You give that area north of Ray Road up. And you expand that area off Lakeville where the roads can't handle it anyways. We can't handle the density on the roads now. I just can't see it's good planning. I don't want to see that happen.
Any other thoughts about keeping or getting rid of the secondary service area?
Well, it almost mirrors the water sewer district is what it's doing. You've got a water sewer district now, and all this is doing, it's almost mirroring it.
Well, at least Kelly's talking about
No,
this
she's
map.
expanding at the
This orange
secondary
one.
component.
So we have,
Oh,
yeah, we have the primary, which mirrors the sewer, and then areas where there's potential or there's been discussion about expanding sewer, a lot of the extractive sites there.
It's page 86?
80, page 80.
It's 86 on, I think, the PDF. So page 80 on the sheets itself.
So you don't understand the ones in yellow.
Here, the brown,
Uh,
the expansion of the urban
Yeah,
service
that's
district.
on that, it's the darker line is the primary, and then the yellow lines are the secondary.
yeah, we're looking at the same one.
Yours is
This
blocky,
one,
it has even
this
more
one?
than- Yeah.
Yeah, he's got it labeled out here as primary and secondary. Future land use has always been, but this one.
Yeah,
had a double
future land use only has the
Double
primary.
line.
That's
but this is already
Are they both?
future land use.
This is
No, it's
the green.
future land use flex.
This is current, that's what they're
This-
thinking of expanding it
Oh,
to.
my bad. Oh, I understand. Yeah, future.
So I can see the south,
This one here,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can see the southeast
This
being a
one here.
possibility.
Suburban residential.
Variance
But-
west.
He's got the wrong map. If you pull up page 86
Okay, so they're
on your search, or
Slightly
it's
different.
page 80 on the sheets itself. Keep going.
Building here,
Next one.
this.
That's it.
There.
Yeah, so this has always been the zone 10
That's
acres,
Primary and secondary.
Yeah.
future land use of 10 acres.
So
No.
the area to the southeast, so that one south of the village, I can see that being a plan, and if the planning commission wants to expand into that area. I just don't see in the next 10 years where I would want to contemplate expanding the urban service district outside of where it already is in the green.
And Jack, you're saying the secondary mirrors the water and sewer?
No,
The
the
green.
primary
Does, yeah.
primary mirrors the water sewer.
Yeah,
Mirrors
no
it.
problem with where you
There's
put
a little difference, but
It's pretty close.
we think it's a leniency somewhere, and some we haven't included. You know, I just look at what that land is gonna be good for once it's extracted.
And
Meadows. Large acre parcels.
Lakeville's our only east-west way to get around. And Lakeville's already, you know, it's two-lane road unless we're really gonna invest, which, I mean, we're looking at how many years to just improve 24. Lakeville's like way off in the horizon if. So if we're gonna think about expanding in 10 years, there's no way the road can handle the density that would come with expanding that district. And the cost.
When do we look at our future road plan, Matt?
That's the next section. Which we have, it's in this packet here.
I know Addison Township to the east, or to the east of me is vehemently opposed
There,
to
so.
adding any roadway or traffic, but we do have, again, an easemented county road through there, and it is desperately needed a north-south route out of this area.
The north-south to go where?
You know, that's just it. I mean, you go from Lakeville Road south on Bar Road to Bar Road, and it's very rural road,
You're talking south of Lakeville.
south of Lakeville.
I was saying, if you go north of Lakeville, where do you go? Someplace small.
You're right through the pit. Yeah.
I mean, the secondary service area is merely a guide for where, if at all, the urban service area would be expanded. They still would have to get, you know, hopefully go through the planning commission, and the planning commission would decide whether or not that urban service area should be expanded into those areas. But it's not,
It's a guide.
it's a guide, and that's all it's meant to be. You don't need it, but it's good to know where, you know, future development may happen and where urban services may need to be expanded to.
But in
Why?
secondary urban services, if the current zoning falls back, take Koenig for example, that's 5 acres plus. North of the gravel pit, what is that? Ag?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. If our planned density warranted being in the urban service district, I say, yeah, but it isn't. Our planned density is to not be that. So you're saying this with one hand, and then you're saying the other.
And
I know.
don't mistake me, I'm not saying that, I'm trying to wrap my arms around it.
No, I'm
as
not
to
saying,
why we
we're
want
saying on one hand, we're gonna keep it, large lots and open, and the other hand, we're gonna, in 10 years, we're contemplating
just
bringing
the
water up
implication
there.
of urban, no, water ain't going up there.
But that's urban service.
Water ain't going above
That's what that
Ray
yellow
Road.
says.
Ray Road,
Why?
if I have that correct.
No,
I think so.
No, that's
Dave's-
Noble's north, it's a mile north of Ray.
This one here?
That's Noble, that's Ray.
Yeah,
But that's saying the waters can go up.
that's what I'm saying. You're saying it's not in the next 10 years.
I hope it
Not
is.
happening.
In the next 10 years, it may go north of Ray Road, but not,
All the way.
not 2,000 feet north.
So you would whack
And
this
not
one off,
2,000 feet east.
this one?
Well,
There's no other
before
choice.
you,
So you would probably wax this one and wax this one.
no, why?
All of them.
No, why would you whack that one on the left? That's in the industrial area. You've got industry in there. And you've got those larger plants that are on septic and well.
It's already on the water map.
I'm saying you got water going all the way up
Yeah.
there. So that's plantable then, this,
But not to the east.
Not to the east of that one line.
this one here?
No.
Anything east.
So get rid of these, yeah.
The whole east side.
This
whole-
one?
That
this is
one and the
village
one-
side supposed to-
That one and the
You
next
don't want to
one.
get rid of that one because that's the one you're trying to protect those 3 lakes. Stumpy Lake, the lake on it, Lakeville Road in the pit.
Yeah,
You could get rid of kind of where, north of where that mouse is.
Move north.
I mean, you don't have to make it a whole parcel one.
Yeah, you could cut it in the
Dragging
middle, you
this
could
across
divide it.
here.
There you go, right there.
Just-
Right there you
Do you know
go.
how much
drag
acreage
this
that is?
across.
Wait, but what's
Take
that
this.
planned for, acreage wise?
To the north,
5 or 6 acres.
To the north of that is 5.
to the north of where that invisible line is, we have 5 acres, and then to the south, we have the combination of 2.5 and 1.
To the north of Willow Lake has always been 5.
So where the 2.5 is proposed, no, but where the 1 is proposed,
But we're,
So basically around the lakes.
where it's proposed for 1 on the master plan is where it should be proposed for any kind of expansion.
Where you're cursor point is, move it to the northeast corner of Willow Lake,
Watching all this.
right there. The line drawn straight across, right straight across, is all the watershed area and those lakes. Keep going. That's what you're trying to protect. And any future development going in there with septic,
Go up to page 90 or down to page 90.
because Jim, there is sewer capacity there, correct?
Yes.
So basically, Jack, you're saying this area?
Yes.
So he's gonna go to page 90.
Take it, that area north of that, take it off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, keep on, no,
we
keep
need
on.
that money.
No, keep on. You're gonna get to the, okay, right there, go down to that property, no, down. Where you
right-
see the 1 acre designation, that's where you'd say you're gonna expand the district, just only in those areas, not the whole way, just those.
Yeah, and that area is being talked about to protect that lake up at
Right, I
that.
understand, but you see the darker orange,
Yes,
or the darker yellow?
yes.
That's where the district should be for the expansion, only there, not outside of it, not out, horizontal line.
Correct.
Match the master plan to the urban expansion.
Yeah, we see that.
Just that area and the other area.
Yeah, but it should go up just a little bit to hit Stumpy Lake on the right, on the east, right there. So if you went straight across from Willow Lake, then you're not gonna build on the north side of the street. You're not gonna,
No, right, just, why
Right
would
there.
you put it out, no, why would you go all the way across? If those others are 2.5 acres, they don't need to be in the district. Just
why
the
you
area
would
that
go
goes
across is that's where the water comes from. That's the wellhead protection area. That's all the water that feeds the village and anything south of Lakeville Road.
Where the well is?
Wellhead protection area.
Okay.
Right straight across. Then anything north of that would be 5 acres and out of the secondary urban district on that map, on the other map we were on.
I understand, you understand? I got it. You
I
guys
understand that, maybe you say that's your urban service district, you're saying that's 1 acre. Or Denver.
Whatever it is zoned, I'm saying this needs to be in the suburb, or the secondary urban services
It's
area.
matching the higher densities on that future land.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that should be what it should be zoned, I'm saying it should be in the secondary urban service area below that corner. Oh, right there. From there, straight to the east, yeah. Everything above that should be out of it, that shouldn't be
Right,
there.
so we're gonna remove this rectangle of orange.
That's what you were talking about, right, Callie?
Yes.
I'm saying that it should match the lines where it's proposed to be 1 acre around the lakes. And also the area north of Drake should be off.
Well, then you would have village lots, 1 acre, smaller properties, 1 acre.
It butts up to 5 acres.
That butts up to 5 acres, it butts up to 10 acres, it butts up to 20. It goes up, 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 up.
So if you're expanding the district around the lake north of Myers, then it should be only that district where the heavier density is planned.
So exclude the 2.5 acre parts from it then? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Show us with your.
it's on page,
So if you look at the future land use.
yes, look back at the future land use, which is page 91.
Here's, Jack, here's what she is saying, that the future, the secondary should just skip over this part, because it's zoned or planned for lower density, then just go around the lakes here.
Hug the lake, yeah.
Yes.
Skip that, and then go like that, and then we can do that, is that?
Yeah,
Okay, I'll modify it based on, Callie's comment there, and then if it's still an issue, we can revisit it.
My point being, you should be able to plan, look at the
Yeah.
future land use plan and the urban service, they should correlate with one another.
So you go on the full length north of that long lake, that long skinny lake?
It should look, this is, right there. That's got a whole quadrant.
Yep, I
It
got
should only be that.
Okay.
Okay. I can do that.
You have the power and the color.
Not enough colors, but. All right. Move on, or?
Yep, move on.
All right. 93, future roads and right-of-way plan. This is, again, carried over from the last plan, identifying potential areas where roads and streets can be expanded, given that either RCOC or MDOT approves. Anybody, you guys get a chance to look at this? Is from the existing plan. You know, Jim had a couple of comments that he can mention.
Yes. The right of way is on Oakwood, is that 120? That's page 97.
There we go. It's labeled as
120,
Is that coming from the county?
yes.
Where are they going to?
Going.
You kind of run out of property once you go down Oakwood, there's nothing to go to.
Yeah. I had a couple comments, Mr. Commissioner,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman. With regards to the future, I did my best impersonation of Clerk Wright, and I got some typographical and grammatic things, so I'll just give that to Matt at the end. But
Just got it from you.
But a couple things I'd like for you just to consider on page 94, which is probably going to be like
100.
100 of your electronic.
B.
No, I think it's the other way, yeah.
100, yeah, research.
One more up, yeah.
So at the bottom of the page there, it says Lakeville Road, Drainer Road Connector. Jack just kind of brought this up, but if you go to about the fourth line down, it says a possibility of extending Grampian Road further south from Lakeville to Drainer. I think Grampian may not be the best route there, that you probably would be looking at Bar Road if you were going to extend anything from Lakeville down to Drainer. That goes through a residential subdivision that's established right now. You're never going to get the right-of-way necessary and so forth. That goes through there. And then my only other comment would be down a few pages regarding the safety path, which is on page 99 of the document, or the hard copy. Yeah, right in there. Right in the first sentence, safety paths, go up just a touch there. Yep, so you see where it says safety paths. In that first sentence, it says the safety path master plan calls for the extension of safety paths adjacent to the following roads in the township. And then it lists 10 of them. Well, really, that's not accurate. Those are priorities, you know, they're the main ones from the safety path committee. I think what needs to be said there is that we're going to call for the extension of safety paths adjacent to all public roadways with priority given to these 10, because we make all developers put safety paths in adjacent to their public roadway, whether it be down on Stanton Road, Savannah Ridge, which is not a part of this list, or any of the other developments that have come through. But again, just a little bit of a grammatical thing that I would suggest.
Okay.
So those, just for your discussions, those 2 points of view, the Bar Road too.
So I agree with the safety path thing.
And then Jim, just on the last map, I had last page, which is the open space and greenway plan. It incorporates the proposed safety path. Do you think it should be priority proposed safety path again?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely, because we're asking for safety paths, like I say, anytime it could be on Baldwin Road if somebody came in, or any place along there. We're asking for safety paths to be put in, but I think the ones that you have listed are the priorities.
Okay, I'll make sure that it says priority safety path.
And then the map that was shown for the, what was the previous one called? The roads master plan?
The safety path master plan or the
Yeah.
future?
Future road?
I think it was a roads master plan. future roads and right of way. I did get in touch with the county, and the proposed right of ways that are on this map right here do match exactly with what the county has proposed.
Okay.
So. Yep.
So, yeah, the proposed roads were carried over from the last plan. I'm going to take Mr. Sharp's comments and amend them. And same with the open space and greenway plan. A lot of this language was carried over, seems to remain unchanged. Green infrastructure, woodland, network opportunity, and open space within developments, all of the points are still valid, in my opinion at least, but do you have any comments? I'm happy to take them.
Iron Bell, how does that fall?
Iron Bell,
Any other comments?
we'll look into that. Iron Bell. When that was initiated.
2016, 2015.
Okay.
We've gotten a little more interest. We're hearing about a little more interest to come up the M24 again, since Orion got theirs, to go through the lumber yard and some streets there in town and connect to our path up to 24. Brandon Township is exhibiting negativity towards the trail and path.
Been already rejected it.
And that,
Yep.
I hadn't heard that, but I know that they were actually fighting it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It went down 7-0.
Yeah. They don't want it going through their community. Well, if you think about it, it leads to some maintenance, it leads to people coming through your yard, it leads to all the alleges.
All right, well, I'll look at that plan and see how it compares with what we have so far.
For the trails and stuff, we have a section of abandoned, I wouldn't say abandoned roadway, I guess it's abandoned roadway. Where was that map on the roads here? The northeast corner of the township,
North here.
yeah, goes page 97. 97. I'm just looking, it's on the map, so I just put the map there. That northeast corner, very top, northeast corner, that very top corner. Nope, keep going to the right. There's a road that goes from there south, all the way down.
Yeah.
It hasn't been used in years. When I talked to the county about it, it's still their jurisdiction, it's still county roadway. It's called Appleman Lane, it's on the older maps. If we don't do something about it, we're at risk of losing it. It is a main corridor for that whole, not just Oxford, but that whole area, and Addison and Metamora. Lapeer has lost, Metamora has lost the northern section once you leave Oxford.
Did they sell it?
No, it hostile takeover from the property owners in a big lawsuit because it was considered abandoned. This community has made regular maintenance and there's people on it and they're keeping a presence on it, but it really needs to be identified and coordinated with the county that we don't lose Appleman Lane.
Touch it again with your cursor, please.
It's the whole section from the very corner right, yep, south 2 miles, all the way down. Keep going.
Oakwood
Yep.
Road to what?
Right there, all the way up.
Noble?
No,
Doesn't go
right.
continue to
No,
here,
no, no,
or
it goes up 2 miles, right there,
from here to here?
up, yep.
But not down here.
No, it's not that, well, not that I know of. You can see it on the old maps, it's actually designated, it's just that because the property owner stopped using it, the road kind of went away. But,
They
you
don't
know,
show it, they don't show it on ours, they may consider that part of like Addison
it's because
Township.
it's a border,
Right.
the way the border goes, it shows the property to the north and the east. And
I
so
agree.
our earlier maps show it, and it's a dotted line, like future expansion, or it's an actual roadway, the county has jurisdiction on it.
I heard only from Bruce Pearson, Jerry Morowski, and some conversation with Mr. Dunn, that may all be in Addison Township. And there is some people that live in Addison Township that access a portion of that road.
No, nobody accesses it,
Okay.
not unless you've got a four-wheel drive.
Applewood Lane is, yeah.
It's definitely mine.
I'm just listening to some conversation about the fire department that had to go up in that area.
It's definitely Oxford, it is not Addison, it runs,
If it's easement through the county, we should look at it.
it's an easement. And I had discussions with the county, and everyone's kind of at a loss on like how to, if we implement it and put it on our future trail list.
Does the Pollyant Trail go around there?
Well, no, you can eventually connect to the Pollyant Trail, but you have to take road for a while. Pollyant Trail along Lakeville, so it's 3 miles. It's in our open space and greenways plan. Our original map shows that Applewood Lane link. But it's a huge major corridor. And there's gonna be battles if we don't try and preserve it. I'd hate to give that up, but it's something that's really important. The long story was that somebody had put a fence on it, and the county was called, and the county forced the property owner to remove the fence. And we're talking, a quarter-mile of fence.
Okay, yeah, I'll look into that and should do some digging on it.
Yeah, see what we can do to preserve it. If we can designate it as a pedestrian or trail, non-motorized, would be great. Okay.
That's it?
Yeah, unless
What
you
was
have
the
anything
result?
else. Got a lot of changes to make, so good discussion.
Thank you, Matt.
You.
Okay, let's move to item 11, communications and committee reports. Are there any comments on the violation report that was out?
There's still a lot of closed ones on the list. There's still a lot of open ones with no activity.
All right, move to item B, subcommittee reports. Number 1, acreage lot subcommittee. Mr. Spiz.
Yep, we met, was it last week? Talked about a lot split, and we granted lot split on the House of Providence property. I did have a condition based on the approval of that private road.
There was a conditional on it.
Correct.
So if the splits are granted and then the road is not approved or it is moved, what happens?
It was approved condition, so if there was no split.
The county already has it registered as split. So
It was conditional when we discussed it.
That's my concern, is the county, I just received notice from the county that it's already split, they've already signed values to it, and it's already done, but it wasn't supposed to be split by our motion until we were sure that we could actually put that word in.
Which motion? I know the one in lot split, we said it was conditional on that. I think it was in Matt's notes too.
The planning commission approved it contingent on DNR and MDEQ approval prior to any splits or anything going on.
No, that's not what motion
That was
said.
my
I have
understanding.
here.
Yeah, as I explained earlier, it was my understanding that the road could be built, the construction permit couldn't be issued without the DEQ.
That's what I was saying too.
That was my understanding. That's what the motion read, or looked like it read to me.
That's what it's right, but what we said was that if the road couldn't go in, not just movement of earth, but if the road couldn't go in, you can't have the split. So the ability to do the roadway isn't known until all the sign-offs were done. So if the sign-offs were done on that, then it would have been able to be put in, then you could do the splits. But the law in terms of lot splits says you can't split a road or a property unless there's an approved private road. That road is not approved. There's a contingency on it. That contingency hasn't been cleared.
Right, and the split has a contingency on it.
No, the split has been done. from the county. Just got it today.
But a road was approved by the planning commission.
No, it wasn't.
By the way this reads,
No, it wasn't.
it kind of makes the read the minutes.
That's what the minutes say, but that's not what we said, and that wasn't the motion.
I have to go by the motion.
That wasn't the motion. I wasn't here for the last one to correct the minutes, but the motion was not made like that. It was, the road is approved contingent on the approval from the DEQ and the MD and the DNR.
I thought he said it was contingent on any, it was contingent if there was no opposition from the DEQ.
Right, if the DEQ had no problem with them being able to put that road there.
We didn't say that the
No.
DEQ had authorized it, we
The
said there was
motion stated that the road is approved. No permits to build the road will be made until
No. it was
the
approved contingent.
DEQ is signed off on the requirements.
That's a procedure, no, it was approved contingent on it. It's a problem. It's a big procedural problem because
Okay, well,
If
I
they don't
we're gonna
approve
settle
it.
it tonight, but I think we approved the road. We approved the road. We didn't issue a building permit.
That's what I understood.
Yes.
no, we don't issue the permit.
You're right, we don't issue the permit because the DEQ has to sign off on it. But the township approved them putting the road
So
on
we
the property.
can't do a lot split unless there's a fully approved private road, meaning it actually is fully cleared, and that road is not fully cleared.
The township has given them approval to put a private road on that property.
If it complies
No.
with the standards.
No, we are not issuing them a building permit to build the road until it's
Land
cleared.
It would be a land improvement permit.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
We have given them the ability and authorized them to put the road,
That
to
was my
have a
understanding
private
the
road
motion.
on that piece of property.
And I listened to the motion, I read the tape on it, that was not my understanding. And then for the lot splits to be granted when the road is,
Well,
we don't know if the road's even going to be approved.
the road
We
is
don't know if the road's gonna be
in
built.
Oxford Township, correct?
Yes.
They cannot touch and put or move an ounce of dirt on that road until they get a land improvement permit, which has the stipulation that the DEQ has to sign off on it. This township authorized the road.
What happens if we approve a split based on a road and the road never goes in? Now we have these lots that are
I can't
created
answer
with no
that.
access, that violates the ordinance.
I can't answer that. All I know is they came here and applied to put a road on their property. We gave them the okay and approved the private road. Now, for them to put the private road in, they have to get a land improvement permit, which they will not get until the DEQ signs off on their remediation plan. The township can authorize them or let them have a designated private road.
Shouldn't that split have the wording in the deed that it's not on their private road?
I don't know. I
And
don't-
I'm looking
not
at our
on the lot
procedures.
split committee.
If we can't split a lot unless it's on a private road, the private road doesn't exist, how can we split
It does exist
in concept?
in
On
concept.
paper.
Yeah. So the lot split is based off of the approved concept.
But
That's
then
what I was,
I'm hearing the law
that's what
split
I'm thinking.
committee said that the split approval was contingent on the approval.
The approval of the
The
road.
approval,
Well,
You
the
can,
road is approved. The road
It's not
is approved.
is what?
It's approved, but it's not installed. because they
Not
don't-
installed.
There's the difference. This township moved and supported, voted on approving that piece of property to have a private road on it at a certain area designated on the map. We didn't give them permission to put the road in. All we did was said, yes, we allow a private road according to these standards.
It's similar when somebody approves plans, but they never build it. right?
Right.
Similar to what could happen.
So you issued a lot split based on the print that we all looked at, Jim,
But the split should have been contingent on building the road.
oh, I don't know about building the road, all I know is they have an approval to put a road on that private property.
You can't build a road without a person.
You can't build a
Parcel
road
number
without a
contingency.
permit, so we won't permit it until we get DEQ buy-off. But can you split the property with an approved road on your property? I mean, the road doesn't have to be built. That's a question, I don't know.
It's an easement, the easement's been filed with the county.
So if the easement's filed with the county then has to assign that easement to parcel numbers. The lot split committee authorized the property to be split. They would assign parcel numbers to those three pieces that they allocated.
So it can be approved as long as the easement is filed.
And it was reviewed by the
Yeah.
attorney.
That's the one thing.
So what's stopping someone from building on it then? They sell it. There's nothing in the deed that says that you have to put the road in before you build.
I don't understand that.
There's property, he'll just make a driveway, he'll just drive on it. You don't need to do anything, you're just gonna
Oh,
drive
yeah,
down there
they'd
to
have
get
to
your
pull
lot.
they'd have to pull the land improvement permit, a soil erosion permit, and they would have Jim
You
Sharp
can't build
has an
unless the road is
permit.
down there.
It'd be very similar to like Savannah Ridge.
So,
It's a long cul-de-sac in there, and they, as long as everything's approved, they could file their condominium documents. The roadway itself would exist, but
it's not there
but the
yet.
township certainly would not issue any building permits until the roadway was actually constructed.
What's to protect a buyer if they buy the lot? There's nothing on the deed or anything that says that you can't.
Oh, yeah, there is, there's an easement. If I buy a parcel,
Maintenance agreement.
there's a registered deed for that parcel, and on that parcel would be the easement for that road that this township approved to be put in. The road wouldn't be there, but that easement would guarantee that property owner that that is where our road is going.
So if they wanted it, they'd have to put it in.
Correct. If the person at the back of Savannah Ridge wanted to build way back there, and the road wasn't in, before the township would issue any building permits on that,
They'd have to
and
do
the
it.
developer didn't do it,
Everything else.
that property owner would have to put in that entire
The
road.
entire road.
Okay, Mr. Spiz, there's no other meeting scheduled on it.
No other meeting scheduled, but there was another split in the northern part of the Hickmont property. We split those properties in 10-acre parcels, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Correct.
The remaining part of the Hickmont farm,
Right, and there was an issue with one of the properties and
Are they gross or not?
We redid them now.
Gross.
10 acres, never gross.
Made sure it was gross, yeah, went back and double checked.
And they meet the wet?
Meet the
In
width,
that
met the
corner one?
gross,
Yeah.
there was a setback issue with the barn that they resolved by changing the property lines.
Yeah.
EDSC,
well, we're continuing to build event schedule to show what's happening in Oxford, and this is just to show people how busy this community is with events. You know, typical lacrosse, the mutter, the Lone Ranger parade, anything down to women's expo, to arts and fair crafts, leading them to the Parks and Rec book. We're just putting those all events together so that we have them in one area. Other than that, that's all I have to report.
Gravel Inspection Committee,
So I believe we have a meeting scheduled for
November.
November 2nd.
Ordinance Review Subcommittee.
Okay. Oh, my notes have disappeared. Okay, well, okay. We have the updated, I guess, chart that Matt had did. We've identified the same thing that we had on the list before. So in terms of process where we're at, going down the list, for the ones that aren't already, through us, we've got the rezoning criteria. And in terms of the rezoning criteria, we have identified a check sheet that's very comprehensive, that's been done. And so basically, it's a quick review of the check sheet to see how that's going to incorporate into our current zoning. And it's a sheet that identifies the standards as well for rezoning, which helps in some of the issues we even are addressing now. In terms of, it doesn't meet the master plan and all those other things. So it makes a process to it so it's uniform and we know exactly what we have to do each step of the way. So that one is pretty well set. It's just a review, and then you guys can take a look at it and see what you think about it. The energy solar systems, that is hot off the presses from the Land Use Institute. They are working on that right now. We expect that there's going to be a model ordinance put out by them very soon. So we directed Matt to contact them and find out their timeline on that. So if we don't have to spend any money and let them do it, we're going to see if we can do that. If we find out it's going to be a long time away, he's already assembled ordinances from a whole bunch of the surrounding communities that we can put together. But right now, I think there's going to be a model one coming out that we'll be able to use. PUD ordinance kind of ties into the same rezoning one. The plan for that was to sit down at the next meeting and just have the subcommittee or the committee identify the weaknesses and improvements we want to make to it, and kind of a flow sheet on how we're going to try and detail to get the clear benefit from that. Then we'll have an idea of how long it'll take us to work on. So that'll be just a plan on what we'd like to address. That way, if the board here wants to steer us in a different direction or has better ideas, we can incorporate it all at one time. Next one down there is the state licensed residential facilities. That breaks down into two components. The first one is just simply, and it's not just that, it's with all of the group homes and things like that, to update our ordinance with the current definitions of all of those types of uses. And so that's already been done. It's just a matter of integrating it into our ordinance. The second component of that then would be to identify areas, because our ordinance is mute on that, on where we would like institutions, dorms, things like that, in the zoning ordinance districts. So that part's going to take a little bit longer to do.
Because it depends on what kind of institution, right?
Yeah, and it depends on what the board feels is appropriate. Should they be near urban, infrastructure? Should they be in certain zoning districts? What's more important? So that's going to take a little more discussion. The first part is already been done. The definitions have already been done. Mobile food vending and food trucks, that's the same concept on that. We think that there's going to be some model ordinances put out with that.
Well, mobile food vending, we have a bunch of example ordinances. The sign ordinance is what we have, a model that we're waiting for. But mobile food vending is becoming a hot button issue, so we're going to look at some example ordinances for that.
Okay.
As for the sign ordinance, we've already identified, we know we need to take out anything that's content-based. So there's going to be a lot more work involved in that. So that's a little bit farther down the line, but we've identified we need to do it. And that, anything that's content-based in our ordinance now is not enforceable. It's also, even looking at the last zoning board, our sign ordinance is very cumbersome. So that's going to be a much more involved change as any sign ordinances with that. One of the other things that I propose to do is just take our district, and we talked about this before, everything that's allowed in the district, and break that into three components. The first one is just eliminate anything that the current statutes have prevented us from being able to enforce or to regulate. There's certain things that we just can't regulate, like residential homes. there, if you allow it in any residential district, if you allow a home in that district, you have to allow those. So those kind of things we can just take off and make changes to instantaneously. The second part would be ones that seem obvious that they don't belong in that district, and just bring that from planning commission. And then the third one is one that's gonna take a little bit longer, and that is to identify and add uses to change with how our, sites, different uses that we're pursuing and different uses that are in there that shouldn't be on there because they're outdated. Did I miss anyone on that one? And then the last component is just for us to identify those things, and then this board has to go back and kind of.
Right, exactly, that last one has not been approved yet, but we're going to go through the ordinance and determine which areas we think should be looked at and get an estimate of the hours for you to send to the township board.
Okay.
And the same thing, if you're aware of things coming down the line or things we should look at, like, look how fast it's solar and food trucks hit us. To be kind of proactive and start thinking about those things ahead of time. And maybe make that kind of an ongoing thing.
And another one to put on your ongoing list is new RM.
Yes, I
Yep.
was gonna bring that up again. If you would, discuss the RMAT.
And we can actually do that in the schedule of regulations when we're going through that list. Like we said, that would be like in the B category, where we start to say, this is kind of an obvious thing we want, let's put it here, and then we can decide how, and if we want to do it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the time we look at it now and say, what's left? Do we want that? And I'm not giving you a smirk, I broke my glasses earlier.
All right, is that it?
Anything else or from there?
Okay, safety pack?
Jim had staked the 4 pieces of property that we need to acquire the easement on for the Seymour Lake Road path. Joe is working with the people, the owners of the property, to A, either acquire the easements, or B, deed the property to Oakland County so that there's a few properties that go to the center of Seymour Lake Road. So we're either A, trying to get an easement to go across their property, or B, deed the property over to Oakland County so that we can build the safety path from the road right away. So we're working with the homeowners, there's 4 of them. But other than that, it's all I've got for safety paths.
Water sewer?
Water sewer, vessel number 4 is repaired, it's up and running. We have to do some controls changes on it. And even though the tanks were 12 to 14 years out of warranty, 12?
10 years out of warranty,
10 years
12
out
years
of
since they were
warranty,
installed.
because we had 2 years warranty. We were able to work with the manufacturer and ascertain a lucrative settlement for the repairs, even though there were no expressed or implied warranties. And it was rather good. I know that I'm going to hit Commissioner Spiz here in the next few days to have a meeting with the Water Resources Committee and iron out some other issues, but all in all, we made some favorable gains in there. Lake Villa's all hooked up. We called them. There are no complaints. Social media is quiet as a church mouse about any water complaints. Everything seems to be running well, and everything's all cleaned up and done.
Good job.
Yep. Anything else, Jim?
Now we just continue to work on the M24 design from Oakdale down to Drainer. That will be incorporated in the MDOT project. And we are working on the redesign of there's an existing well house called Nicholson Shores that's been in a state of disrepair for many, many years.
The sinking one?
The sinking one, yes. So we are working on that, and hopefully that will be constructed next year.
Yeah, we should note that the DEA's having a public meeting for the,
TDA, yes.
yeah, there for the road construction, on Monday.
Monday, the
Monday evening.
16th, is that what it is? I think it's the 16th.
Yeah, it's the 16th at 6 o'clock at the library.
If you want to see what the village streetscape is being proposed, yeah, 6 o'clock at the village.
I think they're starting open house at 3.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
What's the, I'll start before.
They're doing a charrette?
Yeah,
The press introduction starts at 3.
Okay.
Yeah, because the task force is meeting at 6, so thanks, Eddie. I'll put it down as 3, I don't have anything to do.
okay, the ZBA,
Okay, we had a long meeting Monday for the Legacy Center signs. One of the complexities of our sign ordinance, there's so many variations. It's building square foot and how many doors and how many individual stores are in it. It's a mathematical formula that you couldn't repeat twice accurately if you wanted to. And so I went to get a floor plan, you know, like an as-built or what's close enough there, because, yeah, well, okay, I know, I see, laughing. I grabbed the wrong sheet, well, they had the brochure at the township. That's what I had to use, is the floor plan for the brochure to count doors and what things are in there. And I know this came in front of us, so, yeah, I kind of told you so. We needed an as-built, would have been really nice for that. We don't really know what's in there, and it's coming in bits and pieces, so you can't just lay one out and go, here it is. That made our job a lot tougher. We ended up trying to find something that would minimize them having to keep coming back as changes happen. That building is unique, obviously. So we identified along each elevation where a sign would be permitted and the size of the sign. And it's all specified on a plan, which has been signed and dated, so that it's right there, and then also on a detailed sheet that we attach to it. So, you know, on the north elevation, sign 4 is allowed this square feet. So they can change the content of the signs, of what's in the sign, they just can't change the size. And then there was one provision that the urban air, which is 500 square feet, be reduced to 150 square feet if they touch it, if it changes at all. So that's one that could change.
and you did that 360 around the building, right?
Yep, we did it 360 around the building. We tried to eliminate signs on the back side and the north side as much as possible, and stuck to just a few that would not be too disruptive from any of the other views. There was a proposal on that the corner, that northeast corner of the building has a sign, U.S. flag, that's a wraparound. And I and many of the other members were very bothered by that. I don't like the idea of a wraparound sign anyway, but just, I didn't think that would be something that we'd allow or that would be allowed by law, actually. So that one was one that's kind of up in the air what that one was going to look like. But I just want to put that out there. If you see that, that's not one that we wanted to see. So we expect maybe some stuff to come in the future, but it should be spelled up enough that we've made real clear that no matter what happens in that building and no matter how many other things go in there, no matter how many doors get built, that's how many signs you're getting, make it work.
Okay.
Till we comes back from other variants.
I think we were pretty clear.
Yeah.
That's it from ZBA then? Oh, that sounds like more than that.
Yeah, there's a long meeting.
Planning Commission for the village.
Sign ordinance was reviewed. The size of the sign was limited, but what they did was, they said the front yard sign just had, they set the setbacks, requiring it to be set back far enough from the sidewalks. He says with a one-eyed grin. They just recommended to the village council that they approve the setback of the sign. I believe it's 3 feet from the sidewalk and out of clear view for traffic. So they eliminated the large, or increasing the size of the sign. So they just had to clear up the ordinance. So we did that, that's it.
Okay, Matt, anything else?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sharp?
Couple quick updates, the Legacy Center, they are starting the construction of that north parking lot on Monday. Put their silt fence in recently, so they're gonna be beginning that on Monday. As probably most of you have seen, or at least heard, the burning oak is no longer there. Nothing has formally been submitted, but we are aware that there will be something forthcoming to this commission. Be aware of that. At the last meeting, there was a Mary Ann Keynes, I believe, was here. She's the one who was asking questions about MDOT.
Cat.
What's that?
Mary
I believe it's Keynes, or
It's
whatever,
Keynes.
she's from the Lake Village
Right,
there.
Lake Village, yeah.
I told her that I'd follow up and get her some names to MDOT, because she had some concerns about Market Street and M24, so I passed that along to her, and so she can follow up with them directly, I guess, and hear what they have to say. And other than that, I think we should probably pass a cup to get Mr. Curtis more glass, get a new set of glasses there, put a couple bucks in it, but
I have another set at home, I just broke these trying to clean them.
no, but that's all. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I want to appreciate everybody's time and efforts tonight. It's kind of a long one. I announce this meeting ended.
I second that.